Chapter 51. The dinner for the two of them was brought by Madame Pomfrey. Bread, apples, eggs, no meat at all. Lauren and Harry put the food into their mouths feebly. They just wanted to get out of the hospital quickly and destroy the steaks and chicken legs. While Ron was still unconscious, Madame Pomfrey fed him a potion. Before leaving, Madame Pomfrey saw the snacks on the table. Her face straightened, she put them in her arms and said, "I'll pick them up when you are discharged from the hospital." "Oh. When can we leave?" Lauren and Harry sighed repeatedly. "At night, the night is like water. Through the window, you happily enter the house and spread a layer of silvery white on the floor." Lauren lay in her hospital bed thinking about what had happened. "I was negligent, thinking that I could avoid the troll by changing the plot a little, but I was taught a lesson. Whether it's a magic item or a potion designed to drive away giant monsters, you should be able to get it if you prepare in advance, and it won't be such a mess." He should have realized the problem with plot correction. It started out as an accident in flying class. He stopped Neville in time. Without the introduction of the memory ball, Harry still had a conflict with Malfoy, and finally joined the Quidditch team. Regarding the troll, the person in the toilet changed from Hermione to Ron, and the protagonist group still encountered a troll. If it weren't for him, how would Harry and the others deal with the troll? The plot can have deviations, but the results seem to return to the established trajectory. From another perspective, this is also a good thing. Lauren, the butterfly, will not set off a storm and swallow himself up. The advantage of foresight will last until the end of the war. Peter Pettigrew has been imprisoned in Azkaban, and the Ministry of Magic also knows that he is an animagus. He should have no chance to escape. So how will Voldemort be resurrected? The doubt was unanswered, so Lauren did not press the question. Except for the Horcruxes, which caused some trouble for Dumbledore, Voldemort was considered to be dead at other times. A terrifying leader who had gone crazy, he could not get out of Dumbledore's hands. As long as he sticks to the righteous camp, surviving to the finale is not a problem. "Lauren? Are you asleep?" Harry couldn't sleep and wanted to find someone to talk to. "Sleep? Lauren is an unkind guy." Harry has experienced this style many times, but he still can't get used to it. Harry continued, "Did you ever think we were going to die?" Lauren recalled the situation, and he somewhat regretted participating in the troll plot. If it weren't for him, the protagonist would have had other safer ways to get through the difficulties. In the original work, the three little ones easily defeated the giant monster without any injuries. Maybe Ron's levitating spell can really take away the Trolls Club. Without his participation, several people were almost wiped out. Lauren secretly made up his mind to try not to participate in adventurous plots in the future, and he did not have the aura of a protagonist. Seeing Ron being kicked away reminded me of seeing their family at the train station. Harry's voice was faint. "The whole family will be sad if Ron dies. You and Hermione also have relatives, and I only have a godfather whom I have known for a short time. I think it's a good deal for me to trade you three." Lauren didn't know that Harry still had such thoughts. "You can't change anyone if you just rush forward. You will just die faster than others, you two idiots." Harry scratched his head. "It seems so. I also want to learn a powerful magic spell so that I don't have to rush straight into a situation like this next time." Lauren thought for a while. Harry still had to fight Quirrell and the Basilisk next school year, neither of which could be dealt with by magic spells. You can follow Gryffindor's example and rush up and beat them to death directly. The term has been open for some time, and all the students in the Lion House know that the founder of Gryffindor House has a wand in one hand and a sword in the other. He is mainly a melee wizard. He carved his way thousands of years ago and vaguely occupies the top spot among the four founders. It makes sense, but I'm not very strong physically, so I may not be as good at fighting as the head of Gryffindor. Harry thought that was also very handsome. If you have the chance, eat more and exercise more. The conversation that followed was endless, talking about whatever came to mind. The school doctor's office was really boring. Lauren couldn't remember when he fell asleep last night. When he woke up, Harry was chatting with Ron. "I punched it hard on the disgusting nose." Harry was bragging about his heroic appearance at that time, and he was so excited. He was worried that Lauren was still sleeping, so he lowered his voice and sounded like he was sitting at the door of the community. "Bragging old man." Seeing Lauren sitting up, the two of them relaxed their voices. Harry was mainly talking, and Ron had a cough from time to time, which was not over yet. Ron was fine except for the cough, but when Lauren looked at Harry who was talking non-stop and Ron who was listening, he always felt that the two people's roles were reversed. Until Harry said that all four of them had a magic riot, Ron's was the most violent, and the magic power would increase a lot. The faint smile on Ron's face couldn't stop, and the corners of his mouth slowly widened. It was mentioned later that Dumbledore would divide the money from the troll corpse among the four of them as a reward, about 50 galleons. Merlin's beard. Ron smiled so hard that his gums were exposed. At least 12 galleons will be shared. Lauren and Harry also looked at Ron. This money was enough for him to buy a new wand and be able to keep up with his teaching progress in the future. Then I can't buy the autographs of everyone in Charlie's Cannon team. These words made people's blood pressure rise a little, and Harry shouted, "What are you thinking about?" Ron then laughed and said, "Of course, I will buy a wand before that." Harry lifted the quilt and got out of bed. He wanted to put some dust in this man's eyes. Madame Pomfrey came in to bring them breakfast. She checked on Ron's condition and said that his lungs were still a little scarred and needed to be observed for a few more days. Ron took the spoon and put it in his mouth. He had a bold idea, "My magic power is rioting, but they don't. Then am I stronger than them?" At this point, he looked excited, "Can you beat George and Fred?" Harry didn't quite understand. "Your first thought when you became stronger was to beat your brother. The premise is that you have to practice the third-year magic spell." Lauren gave Ron advice. Ron nodded. "It makes sense. If you have strong magic power, you must be able to use it." Time was spent bragging and spanking. In the afternoon, Hermione, Neville, and Seamus came to see them, followed by Ron's three brothers, Percy, George, and Fred. The three eldest children of the Weasley family looked at Ron. The sight of Ron curled up on the ground with blood oozing from the corners of his mouth frightened Percy. George and Fred suggested not to tell their mother about Ron's injury yet, and Percy, who had always been well-behaved and obedient, agreed. Percy was relieved now that Ron was okay. Neville and Seamus were also a little scared. At that time, they thought they were simply notifying the professor, but in the end, their three roommates almost died. Chapter 52. George and Fred made a beeline for Ron's bedside, their voices perpetually energetic and euphoric. "Look who this is! He who defeats the troll. The pride of the Weasley family. Mom will send you a roaring letter of praise." The two of them said something to each other, rubbing Ron's freckled face while talking. Ron was very happy to hear the first few words, but when he suddenly heard his mother, he turned pale with fright. "Ugh! It's terrible. Mom will definitely hang her up and beat her when I get home." Even if he was rubbed so hard that he couldn't speak, Ron could still imagine that scene. Percy answered, "We haven't written a letter yet, you can tell your mother yourself." George and Fred each held down Ron's hands, changed from rubbing to pulling his face, and said in unison, "I'll give you a good memory." "It hurts, it hurts." Ron struggled to get away and said angrily, "You two are dead. My magic power has increased. When I am in 3rd grade, I will hang you up and kick your butts." "Ha ha ha." The twins laughed. "But when you were in 3rd grade? We're in 5th grade. When you were in 5th grade? We've graduated. Poor baby Ronnie. He'll never catch up." Such a cruel fact shattered Ron's dream. His eyes were dull and he was unable to resist, and he screamed as the twins pulled him away. The 3 live treasures made the ward cheerful. "If I had stopped you, no one would have been hurt." Neville thought that he should take Lauren and Harry to find the professor together. If there was only one person in the toilet, maybe the troll would not be attracted and no one would be hurt. "Neville, this was an accident, no one could have predicted it." Lauren comforted Neville. Hermione answered, "Yes, not even Dumbledore." Simo lost his fear, and his thoughts began to become clearer. He spoke in a regretful tone, "If I had known it would be so exciting, I would have gone with you. What a great adventure." Now it is said outside that the 4 warriors of Gryffindor defeated the vicious troll. Seamus regretted it very much. If he had followed, he would have become the 5th warrior. Seamus began to mutter some strange words, "My roommate is a savior, a troll-slaying warrior, and a member of an Auror family." No one paid any attention to strange Seamus. The patient still needs to rest. Everyone stayed there not long before Madame Pomfrey kicked them out. The 3 Lorents stayed in the ward for 3 days and were not allowed to leave the hospital until Sunday night. While walking on the road, Ron complained, "If it weren't for the classes on Monday, I think Madame Pomfrey could keep us for a few more days." "It's not us, it's just you. Lauren took a deep breath of fresh air, which he had been holding for 2 days. Harry kept nodding. Lauren and I woke up the next day, and we were basically uninjured. You were the most seriously injured. Ron obviously couldn't admit it. Please. We are brothers in life and death now, can't we even be hospitalized together? Okay, okay. Harry was about to give the fat lady the command to open the door to the Gryffindor common room, dragons. The fat lady raised her hands excitedly and shouted in a bel canto voice, the warriors of Gryffindor are back. In order to deal with the fat madam, the few of them dilly-dallied for a long time. Opening the door, the lounge was dark. After the 3 Lorents entered, the flames in the fireplace suddenly lit up. Welcome our hero! The crowd cheered. Snapped. Colorful ribbons floated on the heads of Lauren and others. The lounge was full of people, with George and Fred standing at the front. Harry saw that all the Quidditch players he knew were there, including Wood, Angelina, and even the usually unsmiling Percy. The other Gryffindors, almost everyone was there. Hermione was originally in the corner and was pushed forward by her roommate Parvati Patil. The girls pushed her next to Lauren and accepted everyone's cheers together. The little witch would be watched by others when she answered questions in class, but this was the first time like this. Her pretty face was red, and she was very happy. Tonight is to celebrate our Gryffindor warriors who defeated the giant monster. Let's party together. Lee Jordan's voice fits this atmosphere perfectly. The crowd rushed up. Seamus and Dean pulled Neville around Harry and Ron, loudly fabricating Harry's heroic appearance. At this moment, Harry knocked over the troll with a flying kick. Harry wanted to shrink his head into his neck after hearing this. Why are you bragging about me? Ron was eager to give it a try and wanted to write some content of his own. Although Lauren and Hermione were happy for such a scene, they were not used to being surrounded and watched. The two slipped to the fireplace and grabbed something to eat. Lauren was so exhausted during the few days in the hospital that he grabbed meat and stuffed it into his mouth. Hermione watched Lauren devour the food and put the drink glass in his hand. He raised his hands and looked at it with bright eyes. Lauren ate for a while, then swallowed the orange juice into his stomach. He looked up and saw Hermione. Why are you looking at me? Hermione was very relaxed and said in a soft voice, at that time, I thought we were all going to die. Lauren thought Hermione was still a little scared, so he comforted her, it's over now. I've thought about it. What have you been thinking about? Magic is never a gentle, safe trick. Hermione's voice became firm. From potions lessons, to flying lessons, to trolls, someone has paid the price. Lauren hesitated, so we must be able to protect ourselves. Defense against the dark arts classes are obviously not enough. We have to rely on ourselves. Hermione's voice changed from soft at the beginning to crisp and firm. Lauren didn't expect that Hermione would have the idea to improve her strength after experiencing the troll. She even felt that the teaching in school was not enough and wanted to study on her own. This is of course a good thing. In the early stage, Hermione was able to hold down Harry because of her excellent theoretical level. After her 3rd year, she was unable to keep up with him in terms of practical skills. From now on, she would start to focus on practical skills and lay a stronger foundation for the future. Lauren asked, what are you going to do? Sparring with you is like practicing the iron armor curse before. Hermione's expression relaxed and a smile appeared on her lips. What do you think, Mr. 22-0? What words, what words? Lauren couldn't sit still. What's 22-0? We have clearly agreed not to mention this title anymore. And it's not 22-0, I won the last game. Besides, that was me before, now. Hermione just smiled and watched Lauren keep talking to himself. When Lauren's speech slowed down occasionally, the girl added lightly, 22-0. Lauren began to talk to himself again, why the present is different from the past, and the afterglow of yesterday should be looked to the future. This kind of game is really interesting. Hermione used to think that Lauren playing tricks on people was a bad hobby. Now the offense and defense were switched, and it was her to tease Lauren, and she really experienced a different kind of fun. Chapter 53. This party is not just to cheer for the 4 Lorents, but more importantly, the little lions find a reason to make up for the interrupted carnival on Halloween. The laughter continued late into the night, until Professor McGonagall's voice came from outside the door, celebrations are allowed, but in moderation. Professor McGonagall did not come in, the voice was blessed loud, and Professor McGonagall's words echoed in the lounge. Percy woke up with a start and shouted in response, "Got it, Professor McGonagall." "Everyone! That's it for today, we have class tomorrow." Percy began to organize the little lions to return to their respective dormitories one after another. They also heard Professor McGonagall's words. Everyone laughed and went upstairs to rest. They were already very happy today. George and Fred high-fived Lauren as they passed him. "Thank you. We went to the kitchen to get the food." Once again, the twins' movements are always very synchronized. "You guys should also go to bed early." Percy stayed at the end, said this and went upstairs. Only Lauren, Hermione, and Harry and Ron were left in the lounge. They were sitting in front of the fireplace. The firewood was beating, and the warm firelight reflected on their faces, and there was a red reflection from their eyes. This was the first time the four of them were alone together after Halloween, and no one spoke for a while. "Guys! We had a great adventure." Lauren broke the silence and winked at a few people. "Tell me, who is the troll-slaying warrior?" Hermione and Harry couldn't help but laugh at Lauren's antics. "I want to apologize to you." Ron didn't smile. When alone, he finally relaxed, opened up his heart, and revealed his guilt. He finally found the opportunity to say this to a few people. "If it weren't for me, you wouldn't be in danger. Like I said, Dumbledore can't predict accidents." Lauren thought that no one was to blame for this incident, and he didn't avoid it even if he knew the plot. Hermione nodded, thinking that if pressed, she might have made a mistake. Harry put his hand on Ron's shoulder. "We are brothers in life and death now." Several people looked at each other and smiled. After bidding farewell to Hermione, the three boys returned to the dormitory and went to bed one after another. After a few days, Lauren finally touched the Book of Fantasy again. Before entering the Book of Fantasy, Lauren looked around and felt that something was missing. Lauren sat up and looked at Harry. "Today is Sunday, right?" Harry didn't know why Lauren asked so. He hesitated. "Yes, right." Lauren turned to look at Ron again. "Tomorrow is Monday, there is Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration class, right?" Ron also hesitated. "Yes, right. On Monday, the first period in the morning is Professor McGonagall's Transfiguration class, that's right." Lauren's thoughts were clear. "Have you finished your Transfiguration homework?" Harry and Ron became frightened. They were used to leaving their homework for weekends, but they had been lying in the infirmary for the past few days without even thinking about their homework. The two expertly shouted in despair, "Help! Tisk!" Lauren tutted, it was right, otherwise it would always feel like something was missing." The homework was lent to the two of them. Lauren returned to the bed, huddled under the quilt, pointed at the dual room icon, and looked at Flamel's eyes glowing silvery white in the picture. Lauren felt a sense of security in his heart. In the Book of Fantasy, the floating Flamel listened quietly to Lauren's story about Halloween, his eyebrows knitted together, showing a thoughtful expression. The magic riot left a black mark on the troll's nose. Imprint. There is no relevant information in my impression, but I am very interested in the magic spell you perfected at a critical moment. Show me. Lauren took out his wand and was eager to try it. He looked around and saw that there was no target. He looked at Flamel tentatively. "Is it aimed at you?" "Certainly." Flamel floated in the air, raising his head and spreading his arms, as if to welcome something, and his body glowed with white light. Thunderbolt cave opens. Lauren didn't hesitate at all. He didn't think he could cause any harm to Flamel. The tip of the wand glowed red and hit Flamel's chest. The spell penetrated, there was no explosion sound, and red, blue, green, and yellow light flowed from Flamel's chest. After a long time, Flamel opened his eyes. "I can feel that it is derived from door opening, removing the characteristics of opening the door and focusing on the effect of explosion penetration. It is a powerful spell that will have good effects in many situations." Lauren looked excited. "Did I create my own curse?" Flamel shook his head. "The creation of a magic spell should be to master the principles of magic, preset the desired effect, and then design a complete spell-casting action and the way the magic operates. The spell is just a representation. There is no shortage of people with talents in the history of magic. They also created some magic spells in a similar way, but they have not been passed down. Lauren, don't be proud. The real curse will be tested and passed down by generations of wizards and time." Lauren wasn't too disappointed. It was just a blind cat meeting a dead mouse. "What about this curse? Is it a good curse?" Flamel was silent for a while, thinking about what to say. and finally decided to speak bluntly, "Garbage curse, if you want to pursue explosion, then the classic thunderbolt explosion is more suitable and more powerful. If you want to pursue penetration, should use sharp properties, not explosions." "Humph, I don't know what true happiness is at all. Lauren is not as knowledgeable as Flamel. One day, this curse will dominate the little wizard and become everyone's childhood memory." Monday, morning transfiguration class. Harry and Ron strained to open their eyelids, and their eyes were obviously bloodshot. Hermione shook her head in disgust. "How long have you boys been playing again?" Lauren's voice was full of schadenfreude. "It wasn't us." The two of them only remembered that they hadn't finished their transfiguration homework before going to bed. "I don't know how long they had been writing it." Harry and Ron heard the conversation between the two people next to them, but the two of them had no urge to talk at all now. They just wanted to wait until get out of class was over as soon as possible and go back to catch up on their sleep. Professor McGonagall stood on the podium and saw Harry and Ron, who were listless and with red and swollen eyes. "You are still new students, so you shouldn't learn some bad habits. When something happens, you should notify the professor as soon as possible, instead of being self-righteous and acting randomly. In addition, the school allows you to have extracurricular life, but it should not affect your classes," Professor McGonagall said, waving her wand and turning the desk into a snarling fat pig. The students below did not dare to say anything. They sat upright and looked at the serious Professor McGonagall. "Perhaps we should turn some people into parchment and copy the school rules on their bodies 100 times. Ron was so frightened that he was very energetic until the end of get out of class and did not dare to doze off. After class, several people were together in the corridor. Everyone in other colleges was very curious about the 4 troll-slaying warriors, and occasionally students passing by said hello to them. Ron vowed, "I swear in the name of the troll-slaying warrior that the first thing I do when I catch up on my sleep is to do my transfiguration homework. I will never stay up late the night before to do my homework again. If I can't do that, I'll be a giant." "Strange." Harry nodded in agreement. It would be impossible for him to stay up late the night before to catch up on his homework. On the table, Ron handed the letter he wrote to his mother to the owl, flapped its wings, and let it fly. Harry was curious. "What did you tell Aunt Molly?" "The troll sneaked into the school, and the heroic Ron Weasley, with the help of his friends, destroyed the troll." Ron calmly put the chicken drumstick into his mouth with a natural look on his face. Lauren nodded. "Yes, you know how to write." Harry was very calm after hearing this. "You could have kept half of your butt, but now you probably can't." "Hey, Harry!" Ron shouted, "What do I mean? I almost became a troll's excrement, lay in a hospital bed for 3 days, and have to go to Madame Pomfrey for a review next week. That way, you can see my mom spanking me in the hall tomorrow." Chapter 54. The next morning, Lauren had just started eating his porridge when he heard a commotion above his head. Hundreds of owls streamed in, circling the auditorium, dropping letters and packages into the conversing crowd. A grey owl landed in front of Ron. This was the postman who delivered the letter yesterday. The owl quickly put down the red envelope in its mouth, flapped its wings in panic, and fluttered away. "Oh, no." Ron looked at the red envelope and shook his head, trying to lean back, not wanting to accept the red envelope. "Howler letter!" Neville screamed as soon as he saw the red envelope. He looked very nervous, his face was solemn and he quickly put down the bread in his hand, moved his butt and hid far away. Lauren, Hermione, Harry and the people next to them all looked at Ron curiously. The envelope was lying on the table, shaking and getting redder and redder, like a balloon being inflated and beginning to inflate. Neville was so nervous that he couldn't even stutter. "Open it quickly, you don't want to know the consequences of ignoring it." Ron leaned his head back and tried to keep his head away from the letter. He stretched out his hand tremblingly and opened the red envelope. "Ron Weasley! How dare you deal with me like this?" Ron's mother's voice boomed across the long Gryffindor table, and the roar was like a loudspeaker at the entrance of a supermarket plugged into one's ears, with the volume turned up to the maximum. Ron quickly shrank down on his chair, leaving only a red forehead on the table. The students near him backed away and quickly made an open space. Everyone in the auditorium was silenced by the deafening sound and turned to see who had received the roaring letter. "Troll! You are more naughty than your 2 brothers. You probably haven't thought at all that your father and I know how you feel when you deal with the troll." The sound rattled the plates and spoons on the table, and the echoes from the surrounding stone walls were deafening. You have to go home on the weekend and see how I deal with you then. The roaring stopped, but Lauren felt his ears were still ringing. The red envelope of the roaring letter in the air burned, curled up and turned into ashes. Students in the auditorium experienced brief tinnitus and deafness. Seamus sat back down and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Is this a roaring letter? Cool." Dean only saw Seamus open his mouth, but there was no sound. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "What did you say? Why didn't you make any sound? Why can't you just open your mouth and make no sound? I can't hear anything." Ah! Similar conversations happened among the little wizards. They regarded this as a novel experience and found it very interesting. The two brothers George and Fred looked at each other, opened their mouths, ah, and oh, and made various strange sounds, laughing happily. The voices gradually started to sound again, and Lauren continued to drink porridge. It just so happens that you can buy your own wand this weekend. Harry wasn't too worried about how Ron would be dealt with. They had even dealt with trolls, and Ron's mother couldn't be scarier than the trolls. That's really convenient. Ron said angrily, his face still a little pale. Seamus came closer, his voice still loud, "Ron! You must call me next time you get a shouting letter." Friday, there was only one potions class in the morning, and after that, the first-year students' weekend began. In the Gryffindor common room, Lauren and Hermione were sitting side by side next to a window, each of them busy with what they were doing. Hermione was reading a book, and Lauren was revising a paper about the medicinal properties and effects of aconite. The sun came out from the west today, but that old bat didn't deduct points from Gryffindor. Ron spread out on the chair with a milk candy in his mouth. He must have been stimulated by something. Ron was talking to himself, and soon his own magical imagination began to unfold in his mind. Today's Snape must be someone else in disguise. Through the polyjuice potion, the real Snape has been killed. The more Ron talked, the more excited he became, and he was beaming, "We will never be tortured by the old bat again." No one paid any attention to Ron. He had a rich imagination and was always coming up with crazy things. Speaking of Snape, Harry thought of the figure he saw walking up the stairs wearing a green cloak on Halloween night. Maybe there are other reasons. Harry fiddled with the movable joints on the chess piece. "When I was in the corridor on Halloween, I seemed to see Professor Snape going upstairs." Hermione raised her head buried in the book. "Dumbledore was leading the professors to capture the trolls. Didn't he go to the basement with him?" Ron sat up, pretending to be serious, and then said in a profound tone, "I think there must be an ulterior conspiracy in this." Harry thought of the room on the left side of the corridor on the 4th floor, where the mysterious items that Hagrid took out from the Gringotts vault were stored. Dumbledore had sent Loewe, the three-headed dog, to guard them. Troll, Snape. Harry had a vague suspicion in his mind. "What do you think, Lauren?" Harry looked at Lauren. Although Harry and Ron didn't know anything about werewolves, they all knew that Lauren would go to Snape's office every Friday. "Have you noticed anything wrong with Snape?" Lauren knew that Snape should go upstairs to check the situation of the Sorcerer's Stone and guard against Quirrell. However, Lauren didn't plan to tell anyone. After what happened to the troll, he didn't want to get involved in the plot. No one knew what the consequences of his butterfly would be. He is still a first-year wizard, so he is just trying to develop. "Why not ask Snape yourself tonight?" Lauren didn't even raise his head. "Have you forgotten that Dumbledore asked us to be detained at Professor Snape's place?" "Merlin, this is going to keep me in a panic all afternoon." Ron felt like the sugar in his mouth was no longer sweet. "I really hope Madame Pomfrey will leave me in the infirmary to get through the night." Ron was the most seriously injured, and when he was discharged from the hospital, Madame Pomfrey asked him to go back for a check-up over the weekend. The thoughts in Harry's mind were also shattered by the news. "I feel like I won't live long." Harry wailed, "If Snape fills me with poison and asks you to prepare the antidote, you must notify Professor McGonagall immediately. I will miss you forever, Harry." Ron looked at Harry lovingly. Hermione looked at the two people playing tricks and rolled her eyes in disgust. "This is a school. Even for Dumbledore's sake, I can't give you poison." Lauren put down the parchment in his hand and planned to change the topic. "What are your plans for this afternoon?" Ron answered first, "I'm going to see Madame Pomfrey for a review." This was what was agreed upon before leaving the hospital. Harry hesitated for a moment. "I plan to go see Hagrid. He heard that I was injured and has been worried about me. I'm going to check my homework for this week." Hermione wasn't too worried about confinement. There were no points deducted and no expulsion. This was nothing more than a punishment. Chapter 55. In the evening, several people followed Lauren to Snape's office. The basement is a bit dark and spooky at night. Madame Pomfrey must not have carefully examined my injury. I should go back and have a look. Ron became more and more frightened as he got closer to the office. Harry continued, when you go to see Madame Pomfrey this afternoon, you should pick up some antidote for me so that you don't have to make an extra trip later. Hermione didn't want to listen to these two people's nonsense and chased after Lauren, trying to get some experience from Lauren. What did Snape ask you to do before? Help with some medicinal materials and learn how to brew some potions. Lauren's face didn't turn red, and he told the truth. This is indeed the case, but the herbs used are a little different. The office door was open, Lauren knocked on the door and let a few people in. Snape did not sit behind the desk and correct homework as usual, but stood in front of the desk and watched several people enter the office one after another. His eyes looked back and forth between everyone, lingering on Harry the longest. The three people who came to Snape's office for the first time didn't dare to look around, but from the corner of their eyes they saw snakes, giant toads, and even things that looked like babies soaking in glass jars, and their faces turned pale with fear. Oh, the warrior who destroys the trolls. Snape sneered, if it were another time, I would definitely let you know how ridiculous and self-righteous you are. The four of them buried their heads, no one wanted to get into trouble. Snape looked at Lauren and Hermione, I thought you two were smarter, but you turned out to be just as reckless and ignorant as other Gryffindors. What's the difference between your brains and those of a troll? Silence fell in the office. No one saw. Snape looked at Harry with dark eyes, looking at the scar on his forehead. That was the mark left by Lily. It was almost Lily would be disappointed in him again. Follow me. Without looking at the four people who were posing as quails, Snape led several people into the storage room, where 4 boxes were placed, all covered with lids. Lauren vaguely guessed what was inside, and he thought to himself, it's a flower, not a snake, it's a flower, not a snake. I don't have time to play the confinement game with you 4 warriors. The galleons that Dumbledore promised you are on the table. Lauren will tell you how to do it. If I come back and find that the materials have not been processed well, then what will you do next? For a month, I have to come here every Friday for confinement. After saying that, Snape walked out of the office and closed the door with a bang. The 4 people in the storage room looked at each other. Harry breathed a sigh of relief and joked, I thought I was going to be poisoned and sent to the school infirmary tonight, but I didn't expect that I was just dealing with potion ingredients. Ron also relaxed, it's much better than I thought to just be scolded by Snape. Hermione looked at Lauren, what are we going to do? Don't be too happy too soon. Lauren sighed and walked to the box, open the treasure box. With that said, he opened the lid. Hiss! Hiss! The green-striped viper twisted and twisted in the box. Ah! Ron and Hermione screamed, and Hermione stepped back in fright. Harry stared at the 2 boxes of densely packed snakes in a daze. Bingo! Hit the jackpot! Lauren exhaled, old friend. Now he will no longer be scared to sleep like the first time. He walked forward and took out a row of test tubes on the shelf from the cabinet, take a look. As he said that, he reached into the box, caught a snake, opened the snake's mouth, bit the snake's teeth at the mouth of the test tube, and waited for the venom to be secreted into the tube. These snakes are enchanted and will not bite. They will become stiff beyond the height of the golden thread. There is no danger. Lauren did not introduce the poisonous nature of the green-striped viper, which would only make a few people more panicked. After finishing a set of procedures, Lauren stepped aside and motioned for several people to take action. Harry was still in a daze, Ron's legs were shaking and he didn't dare to step forward. Hermione had tears in her eyes and kept shaking her head. Do you want to be confined for 1 night, or for a month? Ignoring the others, Lauren began to collect snake venom. There was no way to persuade him. Lauren was scared to death for the first time, so he could only wait for a few people to muster the courage on their own. After watching Lauren do this for a while, Hermione clenched her hands into fists, wiped her eyes, and walked next to him. I'll give it a try. The girl cried, sounding timid. Hermione trembled slightly and reached out her hand, gently holding a snake. The moment he came into contact with the snake's scales, his shoulders trembled visibly. Then he strengthened his courage and lifted the snake out. With his hands stretched straight and his head retracted, he pressed the snake against the mouth of the test tube to extract the venom. After taking out the venom, Hermione closed her eyes and threw the snake into another empty box. She kept panting and whimpered, but she didn't shed any tears. Lauren put his hand on her shoulder, trying to bring her some comfort. Ron saw that Hermione could do what any girl could do, and not wanting to lag behind, he pulled Harry towards another box and started operating it. After a while, Harry began to make strange noises, as if he was imitating the hissing of a snake. Hiss, hiss. Ron didn't pay much attention, he was trying to control his shaking hands. Hiss. Hi. Hiss. This behavior was so weird that Ron couldn't stand it anymore. Please. Harry, please don't make weird noises, okay? Harry woke up with a start and Lauren and Hermione also looked over. Harry looked at Ron suspiciously. Didn't you hear them talking? Lauren patted his head, forgetting that Harry was a Parseltongue. Ron opened his mouth in surprise and began to stutter. You are a Parseltongue. What am I? Harry asked. Parseltongue. Ron was a little excited. You can talk to snakes. What's the problem? Harry said. This is the second time I've done this. I talked to a python before. It's a long story. I thought being able to talk to animals was a wizard's talent. Many people can do it, right? Harry looked at Lauren and Hermione. They both shook their heads in unison. They can't do it, said Ron. It's not an ordinary skill, Harry. Then didn't you hear what I just said? Harry noticed something was wrong. I just heard you making weird noises. This is too bad. Ron was very excited in the first half of the sentence, but then suppressed his voice in the second half for fear that others would hear. Harry didn't understand what was so bad about this. What does it matter? Hermione replied, Parseltongue is Salazar Slytherin's famous skill, so the symbol of Slytherin house is a snake. Ron added, nowadays, it is generally believed that those who can speak Parseltongue are descendants of Salazar Slytherin. Many Parseltongues are dark wizards. The reputation of Parseltongue is extremely bad. I'm not. Harry suddenly felt panicked. He was not a descendant of Slytherin, nor was he a dark wizard. Lauren didn't expect that Harry would show his talent for Parseltongue here. According to the plot, this should be the plot of the Chamber of Secrets. He thought for a moment about how to say it. We all know Harry's not a bad guy. Lauren looked at Hermione and Ron. As friends, we should keep this secret. The two responded to Lauren's gaze and nodded. Lauren turned to Harry and said seriously, don't show your Parseltongue ability in front of others in the future. Harry nodded blankly. He could feel that this was for his own good. The concern of his friends made his panic slowly fade away. It's not illegal to speak Parseltongue, he thought and relaxed. Several people began to take the snake venom. Hiss. Lauren and the other three looked at Harry at once. Harry raised his head and smiled naively. They told you to catch it gently and quickly. It's very uncomfortable outside the golden thread. Right. Can communicate. Lauren's eyes lit up. Ask them if they can spit the venom into the test tube themselves. Hermione and Ron's eyes also lit up, and they looked at Harry expectantly. Harry lowered his head and made a hissing sound, and the snake in the box also hissed in response. It seemed like a question and answer conversation. Even though the three of them already knew about Parselmouth, this weird scene still made goosebumps appear on their arms. After communicating for a while, Harry raised his head and said happily, they said yes, which is good for both parties. Let's just put the test tube in. Okay. Ron cheered. If he reached out to take the venom from the snakes one by one, he would definitely sleep with the snakes in his dreams at night. Oh, that's scarier than a spider. Lauren secured the test tubes to the rack and placed the whole thing into the snake box. The snakes in the snake box began to surge, wrapping themselves around the test tube one by one and spitting venom into the test tube. Harry stared at the snake box and hissed from time to time. Ron looked at this scene with fear and wanted to take a closer look. No longer needing to remove the snake venom, Hermione's tense shoulders relaxed and she was able to take a leisurely look at the entire storage room. Horn of the bicorn. African tree snake skin. Hermione counted the materials with obvious features placed in conspicuous places one by one. Professor Snape must be very rich, Hermione concluded. Ron also started to look around. How can you tell this? He didn't recognize the potion ingredients at all. Hermione was a little disgusted, but explained, every material here is valuable. Some high-quality African tree snake skins are worth hundreds of galleons per ounce. Ron's eyes were shining with money, and he was drooling as he looked around the storage room. He quickly gave up the painful thoughts in his heart. If I weren't afraid that Snape would make me into a potion ingredient, I would. He didn't finish what he said, but the people around him understood what he meant. Harry took out a test tube filled with venom and said with a smile, "You may not have any medicinal value, Snape may make you into snake feed." Ron looked at the densely packed snakes in the box and shuddered thinking of that scene. "I hope I won't have to feed the snakes alive." Harry put an empty test tube in, hissed for a while, raised his head and said with a suppressed smile, "These snakes say they have a specially prepared diet and won't eat something as smelly as yours." Ha 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 ha. The gloomy storeroom becomes joyful. Please pursue my studies, please invest, and if there is anything you think is not good, please tell me. Chapter 56. Lauren Morgan, a black-hearted capitalist, had to squeeze out the venom from snakes himself. With the help of Foreman Harry Potter, he quickly completed the workload of 2 boxes of snakes. Lauren closed the box again and arranged the test tubes containing the venom neatly on the shelf. An XIN waited for Snape to come back and announce that today's lockdown was over. Hermione's words made a few people interested in visiting the storage room, but they didn't dare to touch anything. No one knew whether Snape had cursed or poisoned these materials. Harry felt that Snape had that kind of intention. He left the office and asked them to let down their guard and touch anything casually. They would be poisoned and die without leaving any evidence. Ron stood far away, curious about the value of these materials, and kept asking Hermione and Lauren. "How much is this worth?" "The skeleton of the invisible beast is worth dozens of galleons, and their fur is even more valuable." "What about this?" "I don't know the price of the winged demon's wings either." After waiting for a long time, Snape never came back. Combined with Snape's behavior of putting the galleons that Dumbledore awarded them on the table in advance, Lauren speculated, there should be no need to wait for him to come back. Hermione and the other 3 didn't object. They couldn't wait in the office forever. Lauren and the others checked again, confirmed that nothing was missing, and left. Ron walked happily at the front holding a small bag containing gold galleons, throwing it up, catching it, throwing it up, and catching it. Listening to the crisp metal collision sound of the gold galleons in the bag, heartfelt happiness welled up in my heart. Tisk, nice night. Harry also felt in a good mood. There was no Snape in the confinement, and those tedious and psychologically stressful tasks were easily solved by his parcel tongue. Lauren and Hermione walked behind, not talking about anything, and followed quietly. It seems like anything can be said, and yet it seems like nothing needs to be said. Walking forward, walking through the dark shadows and into the light of the candle. You can feel that there is such a person beside you, and you are walking on the same road at this time, so you don't have to worry about finding topics. Some moist air at night entered the lungs, and it was cool, making breathing easier. "Are you free tomorrow?" Hermione asked, as if she were casually saying the wind was nice today while walking on the roadside. Lauren was also very relaxed. "Nothing planned, what's wrong?" "I want you to accompany me in dual training." "No problem at all." The 2 became quiet again, walking side by side in the corridor, breathing comfortably. Several people returned to the lounge, found a corner to sit down, opened the bags and distributed the money. There were a total of 60 galleons in the bag, 10 more than Dumbledore said, and each person could share 15 galleons. Tomorrow is Saturday. Ron was ordered by Mrs. Weasley to take leave for the weekend and go home. Maybe his butt would be blooming when he came back, but when he thought about his new wand and the extra gold galleons, Ron couldn't stop. "Enjoy your stay." Early the next morning, Hermione dragged Lauren to the room of requirement. With a straight face and a serious face, Lauren suggested that Hermione also start with the Iron Armor Curse. This is a curse that can last a lifetime and can protect against most evil curses. For those who have experienced magic riots, learning the Iron Armor Curse is the best choice. Hermione cleared her mind, nodded and agreed with Lauren, and started practicing the Iron Armor charm. It was finally time for me to avenge my shame. Lauren could no longer keep his face straight, and the corners of his mouth raised uncontrollably. "Is there any problem?" Hermione thought Lauren's smile looked suspicious. Lauren rubbed his cheek and said, "Ahem, there's no problem." After speaking, Lauren began to tell Hermione some details of the Iron Armor Curse, the gestures when casting the spell, and the intonation of the spell. Hermione was no stranger to these. During the process of Lauren practicing the Iron Armor charm, she watched Lauren improve little by little, and she quickly memorized these key points. In the dual room built by the Room of Requirement, Lauren and Hermione stood facing each other, wands raised in front of them. From this moment on, Lauren couldn't hold back his expression anymore and showed a wicked smile that couldn't wait. The smile almost had ill intentions written on her face. Hermione was a little frightened. She tightened the wand in her hand and focused on Lauren. "It's my turn to perform," Lauren thought to herself. "Are you ready?" There was no sneak attack. Hermione felt a little relieved and said in a deep voice, "Ready." "Are you ready?" The curse was about to come, Hermione said with a breath, "Ready." "Are you ready?" Hermione finally understood that Lauren was teasing him, and was a little speechless, but still responded, "Ready." Hermione recalled the first sparring scene between the two. It was the first time she had cast a binding spell on someone. She was so nervous that she unconsciously asked several questions. Hermione found it funny. She was nervous, so she repeated it, but Lauren actually remembered it to this day and wanted to recreate the original scene. Just when Hermione thought Lauren would repeat it a few more times and was ready to answer a few more times, Lauren took action. Tong tong petrochemical. Hermione didn't have time to react. She was illuminated by the white light of the curse. Her whole body stiffened, her hands were stuck to the sides of her pants, and she fell straight down. Yet, Lauren secretly cheered as his treacherous plan succeeded. His face remained calm. He walked over, squatted down, and looked into Hermione's eyes, pretending to regret, and said, "Oh, it seems you are not ready." The little witch's eyes widened and she stared at Lauren's face. If there was a magic that could materialize her eyes, Lauren would have been shaved down to nothing but bones. Lauren pretended to lift the curse on Hermione. As soon as the spell was lifted, Hermione immediately stood up and wanted to settle the score with Lauren. Lauren squatted on the ground and raised his head, looking at Hermione with innocent eyes. His sky-blue eyes were very clear, as if to say, "What was wrong with me? I just asked, are you ready a few more times?" Hermione couldn't catch the mistake and couldn't find it easy to attack, so her little white teeth gritted together and said, "Do it again." "Okay." Lauren answered readily and stood up simply. The two men dueled again for positions. Lauren smiled happily, "Are you ready?" When Hermione heard this, she wanted to blow her wand into Lauren's face, but she still held back and replied, "Yes." She didn't dare to relax at all, and was always on guard against Lauren's sudden attack. "Are you ready?" "Yes." Tong tong petrochemical. Before Hermione could finish her reply, she was hit by the binding spell again and fell to the ground. "You're dead, you're dead." Hermione lay on the ground with her eyes closed, these words echoing in her mind. Lauren squatted next to Hermione again, wanting to talk over tea. Seeing that Hermione's eyes were closed, he stretched out his hand to flick the girl's eyelashes. The girl's eyes were itchy and couldn't bear to open them. This is also part of actual combat. You have to learn to deal with sudden spells. Lauren's tone sounded serious, and he looked into Hermione's eyes sincerely. Hermione was led astray, as if that was the case. "Then let's continue." After Lauren broke the curse, before Hermione could stand up, he walked to the side and made a dueling stance. "Are you ready?" Lauren asked loudly. Hermione quickly adjusted her posture, "Yes." The sparring was on the right track. With Lauren's experience, Hermione could avoid many detours. The greater magic power would make it easier for Hermione to cast the iron armor curse. Although she couldn't resist Lauren's binding spell all morning, by the end of the sparring session, Hermione was close to grasping the feeling of a magical barrier. The two decided to strike while the iron was hot and continue sparring in the afternoon. On the way to the auditorium for dinner, Lauren hummed an unknown melody, and anyone could tell that he was in a happy mood. "Are you happy?" Lauren coughed twice and cleared his throat, "I have something important to announce." Hermione tilted her head and looked at Lauren, "Say." The current record between Hermione Granger and Lauren Morgan is 22-23, with Mr. Morgan temporarily leading. Chapter 57. Sunday night, Gryffindor Common Room. Lauren and Hermione came in from the outside and saw Harry and Ron pulling a group of young wizards around. Ron was talking about something excitedly, while Harry and the other young wizards had painful expressions on their faces, full of rejection. The two walked over and saw a brand new wand on the table. Ron also saw the two of them, stood up and greeted, "Hey! Lauren, Hermione, come and see my new wand." Before Lauren and Hermione could react, the faces of the little wizards around them became even more painful when they heard this. The two found a place to sit down. Ron looked very happy. This is what Ollivander carefully selected for me. It is 14 inches long, made of willow wood, and the core of the staff is unicorn tail hair. Harry interrupted Ron and quickly continued, willow is an extremely rare wandwood with extraordinary healing power. The texture of willow wands is very beautiful, and it is very suitable for casting advanced silent spells. But willow wands wizards with great potential are usually chosen. He speaks very fast, like a reading machine without emotion. Ron glared at Harry and planned to continue. Before Ron could speak, Seamus quickly answered, unicorn tail hair can usually cast the most stable spells, and is least likely to cause fluctuations or blockages. Wands with unicorn tail hair cores are generally the least likely to succumb to the dark arts. They are the most loyal of wands. Ron couldn't stand it anymore. What he wanted to say was robbed of him twice. He stared at the two in annoyance. Hey! This is my wand. Yes. Harry covered his head in pain. You have been saying this for an hour. You have to hold us back every time we come in, and we are not allowed to leave. Seamus also complained, we can all memorize it. Lauren and Hermione couldn't help laughing. Ron rationalized, his arrogance immediately dissipated, and he muttered, I'm just sharing my joy with you. Fortunately, you are still my roommates. So how many butts do you have now? Lauren was more curious about this question than the wand. Speaking of this, Ron cheered up, I didn't believe it myself. I told my parents about the whole thing, and they didn't blame me. They just asked me if my injury was healed. Every parent gets angry when they hear their child gets into trouble, but every parent gets worried when they hear their child is in danger. The Weasleys are not actually very angry, they are just worried about their children. Ron remembered something and added, my mother asked me to invite you to my house during the summer vacation. Mrs. Weasley wanted to thank several people for risking their lives to rescue Ron, especially Harry and Lauren. Harry and Hermione were very excited. They were very curious about the pureblood wizard family. Lauren was also curious about the burrow. They all agreed. After talking about Ron, the young wizards relaxed and the topic gradually spread. Harry talked about the Quidditch team. On the third Saturday in November, he was going to play his first game in his life. The Gryffindor team played against the Slytherin team. We haven't won the Quidditch trophy in 4 years, and Wood feels sorry for his former seniors. Harry said about the historical record. Hermione thought about the photos she had seen of Professor McGonagall jumping up and waving on the Quidditch pitch. Gryffindor House's previous Quidditch games must have been very strong. Harry remembered his dad's medal for Best Seeker and wanted to be like his dad. On the contrary, Ron was very relaxed. Don't worry Harry, our team has 2 Nimbus 2000 this year, and you are a genius seeker. The Quidditch trophy must be ours. Harry sighed. It was this kind of sustenance from other people that made him very stressed. After entering November, Wood changed the Quidditch training on Wednesday nights into a situation where he would drag anyone he caught to the Quidditch pitch. He doesn't have time for a week. Lauren recalled the plot of the Quidditch game. Harry would be cursed by Quirrell and fly dangerously. With the help of Snape and Hermione, he survived and captured the Golden Snitch. He has always had a doubt as to why Snape didn't attack Quirrell directly when he knew it was Quirrell who was causing the trouble, but instead recited some counter-curse. There is no answer, so it can only be attributed to the sudden incident. Snape has no evidence and cannot openly attack Quirrell. With his thoughts in turmoil, Lauren sorted out another thing that concerned him and said to Harry, you said you are always caught going to Quidditch training and you don't have any time off for a week. Harry looked at him and nodded, that's right, what's the problem? Lauren's eyes flickered to Harry and Ron. Before that, let me ask, can you two imitate the troll's cry? This is a very strange question, why do you ask about the roar of the troll? Ron still nodded and answered in an uncertain tone, yes, right. Lauren straightened up, leaned next to their heads, and whispered, have you done your transfiguration homework? Harry and Ron's eyes trembled as they suddenly remembered what happened on Monday. In Ron's mind, he heard himself swearing loudly at that time, in the name of the troll-slaying warrior, the first thing I do after catching up on sleep is to write the homework for the transfiguration class. I will never stay up late to make up for the homework the night before again. I can't do it. I'm a troll. Harry and Ron looked at each other and understood the meaning in each other's eyes, who would remember their homework after catching up on their sleep. Ahem. Loyal ignored the non-existent tie, sat back on the chair, stretched out his hand and said, "Please start your performance." Roar. Neville's memory is not very good. He has the habit of writing a diary. Every night before going to bed, he will simply write down what he can remember today. Sunday, November 10, 1991 was overcast. 2 of my roommates are still copying Transfiguration homework, and they call it reference. I don't quite understand why people like me who don't have a good memory remember to write their homework well. Why do they always save it before going to bed? This is a bad habit. Don't learn it. They swore firmly that they would never do it again. So I heard the cry of the troll, which was very interesting. Monday, Transfiguration classroom. After class, the students packed up their things and gradually left the classroom. Lauren approached Professor McGonagall, who was packing her things, and said, "Professor McGonagall, I have a request." "Say." Professor McGonagall was busy cleaning up the books on the desk. She knew that Lauren was not a child who was easy to worry about. "I want to be the commentator for Quidditch games." Lauren asked for the best viewing seat. Professor McGonagall stacked several books into a pile and took them away. "The narrator has been confirmed to be Lee Jordan and will not be changed," he said, and planned to leave the classroom. Lauren quickly caught up, "I can explain it with him." "It's not necessary." Professor McGonagall didn't want to stay or agree. Lauren was not a worry-free student. She was worried that Lauren would give her a big surprise in front of the entire school. Lauren grabbed Professor McGonagall's sleeve and tried to make an innocent and pitiful expression with her eyes. "As a child from a Muggle family, I just want to get closer to my classmates. I promise not to cause trouble." Professor McGonagall paused, wondering if this was another troublemaker like the Weasley twins, but Lauren did behave well in class and never did anything out of the ordinary. "Come to me in the office tomorrow night. I will test you on some questions about the rules of Quidditch. If you pass, you will be the commentator." Professor McGonagall gave in, but not completely. "Of course." Lauren ran away happily. Lauren sat next to Harry at the dinner table and asked if there was any quick way to learn the Quidditch rules. Harry said that he trains with the team and learns a rule every time he commits a foul. He has learned more than 100 rules so far. But if you want him to say it, he can't say it, but he can take Lauren to experience what behaviors are foul. Lauren shook his head violently. "I just want to be a commentator. I don't have to actually go to the battlefield. You can break your hands and feet playing Quidditch. This also allows me to experience foul play. I can't come if I can't come. Perhaps you can read the book The Magic of Quidditch. Hermione suggested to Lauren after hearing their conversation. Lauren was surprised. He always thought that Hermione didn't like Quidditch very much. "You actually read books about Quidditch? This book is very interesting and can be read as a story." Hermione did not say that she read some Quidditch books because of Professor McGonagall. Lauren went to the library and found this book, like a dictionary, with the help of Mrs. Pants. This book records the origins of Quidditch. The sport of Quidditch takes its name from its birthplace, Quidditch Moor. An 11th century witch named Gertie Kidder, who lived near the swamps, wrote in her diary for several days describing the development of the game of Quidditch at the beginning, and mentioned how various elements of the game were introduced. Gertie initially complained of her troubles when a group of men riding broomsticks played a ball over the swamp and the ball fell into her vegetable patch. She confiscated the ball and cast a poisonous spell on whoever came to her for it. On the second day, the ball players did not give up, they made a new ball. They also started throwing the ball into the woods at one end of the swamp to score. This is the earliest prototype of the quaffle and the scoring circle. On the third day, the golfers got 2 rocks flying in the sky and tried to knock them off their brooms. This is the predecessor of the bludger. Later, the rules gradually became complete and evolved into what they are now. Each team has 7 players, including 1 keeper, 2 batters, 3 chasers, and 1 seeker. The game is played with a total of 4 balls. The chaser is responsible for the quaffle. During the attack, shooting the ball into the opponent's goal can score 10 points. The goalkeeper is responsible for defending the goal, so he can touch the ball with his whole body. In addition, he can also use the quaffle to participate in front court attacks. 2 heavy bludgers will automatically fly around the court, trying to knock players, especially quaffle players, off their brooms. The batter must use a bat to hit the bludgers out to protect their own team. Players may use it to attack and interfere with opposing players. The last ball is a golden snitch flying around the court. The seeker scores 150 points for catching the golden snitch. The game cannot be ended without catching it. The story once mentioned a ball game that lasted for 3 months and the players played in shifts. I won't go into details about the historical evolution of Quidditch later. Lauren scanned it quickly, then took the magical Quidditch and returned to the dormitory to sleep. Quickly familiarize yourself with various rules and foul behaviors in the book of fantasy. Flamel was indignant and scolded Lauren for not studying so hard. It wasn't until the next morning that Lauren shook his swollen head, walked to the window, and took a few breaths of cold fresh air before he gradually woke up. Please read it. Also, thank you Captain for the reward. It's really touching for a newbie to receive the reward. Woohoo! Chapter 58. Breakfast time, on the Gryffindor table. Harry picked up the bread with difficulty, put it in his mouth and took a bite. He chewed it for a long time and couldn't swallow it for a long time. After trying one bite, Harry put it back on his plate and scratched the plate feebly with his knife and fork. Everyone could see Harry's dejected look, and there seemed to be a faint black air coming out of him. Eat something quickly, Harry. Ron couldn't stand it anymore and advised him. Alas! Harry sighed and repeated the previous action. He barely took a bite of bread and chewed it for a long time before swallowing it. It was too difficult to work up his appetite in this state. Harry chose to give up and took a sip of the hot milk. Today I have 3 classes, 3 assignments, and Quidditch training in the evening. Just thinking about this makes me feel out of breath. Come here. Hermione tried to reduce some of Harry's pressure. Professor Sprout won't have a lot of homework. Flitwick and Professor Binns' homework is usually due the next week. Relax, Harry. You can refer to my homework. Lauren had a big lump in his mouth and couldn't speak clearly. This sight made Hermione's hands itch. The concern of his friends made Harry feel more relaxed, and he no longer felt so out of breath, not just homework, but also Quidditch. I'm just a novice, and Wood has pinned his hopes of victory on me. Don't know the real game yet. Harry couldn't say anything. Although the training was very smooth and he felt very good, it was his first competition after all, so there was no way he wouldn't be nervous. Then you're in time. Lauren swallowed what was in his mouth, reached out and took out the magical Quidditch and slapped it on the table. Quidditch Quick Manual, The Origin and Evolution of Quidditch, Classic Games in History. This book, there is everything in the book. Since you are an acquaintance, I won't charge you any money. Harry ignored Lauren's strange words and took the book to read. He quickly became immersed in the book. Hermione saw the title of the book and looked towards Lauren. This was the book she recommended to Lauren yesterday. Lauren could summarize the general content of the book today, which was really fast. Hermione blinked thoughtfully but said nothing. Lauren on the side didn't see Hermione's strange scrutiny and was minding his own food. After the herbal medicine class in the morning, Lauren went to Professor McGonagall's office. Professor McGonagall did not embarrass him. He simply asked about some scoring rules and let him pass. He wrote a warrant and asked Lauren to take him to Lee Jordan for a run-in. Before leaving the office, Professor McGonagall stopped Lauren and looked at him with soft eyes. I know the reason for my family and friends is just to convince me. No matter how naughty Gryffindor students are, they are still my students. There will be no pure students here. Blood, Muggle argument. Lauren, you have a group of good friends. I understand, Professor. Lauren had never seen Professor McGonagall like this before, and he didn't know how to respond. Before Lauren could think about it, Professor McGonagall said with a serious face, but if you dare to cause trouble during the game, I will turn you into a quaffle. No problem, Professor. Lauren patted his chest and realized that this was the familiar Professor McGonagall. Promise not to cause trouble. What bad intentions can an ordinary Quidditch commentator have? He just wants to make a living. After entering November, the weather became colder and colder. It didn't snow heavily yet, but the lake surface was already frozen. Every morning when I wake up, there is a thick layer of frost on the windows. The mountains around the Coat School are grey and covered with white frost. Hagrid could be seen through the window, all wrapped up in a moleskin coat, rabbit fur gloves, and beaver fur boots. Always defrosting broomsticks on the Quidditch pitch. Fires were burning brightly in the fireplaces throughout the castle, and even the walls were warm to the touch. The students didn't feel the cold at all in the castle, and they only wore coats under their robes when there were outdoor classes. Although it is warm in the castle, it will feel stuffy after staying for a long time. Everyone is lazy and lacks energy. The professors will use cyclone cleaning to bring fresher air before class. Students think that breathing should be done outside the castle, on the grass, or in the courtyard. The twin brothers boasted that the air in the Forbidden Forest was the freshest, not to mention the depths of the Forbidden Forest, but just smelling it at the edge of the Forbidden Forest would put them in a good mood and make them happy all day long. The senior students taught the freshmen a modified fire spell. The blue flames they created did not require any burning objects and floated in the air. The temperature was just enough to keep people warm and would not burn anyone. Girls like to put a handful of bright blue flames in a honey jar and carry it with them, which is warm and beautiful. When Lauren saw it for the first time, he thought it was something like phosphorus fire. Later, he discovered that the flame could keep burning even if it was sealed in a jar. He was quite emotional. What are the three elements of combustion, and what are the combustibles and ignition sources? Magic is everything. Lauren, Hermione, and others would find a corner in the yard, place a few jars of bright blue flames, and sit there reading, chatting, and eating. Just like outings in spring, this kind of behavior in winter makes people more energetic and prevents them from being lazy and wanting to sleep all the time. On Friday, the day before Quidditch started, Lauren, Hermione, Harry and Ron sat around the flames. Hermione and Lauren were checking their homework for the week, adding something between sentences from time to time. Lauren would make corrections and give them directly to the professor, thinking that this could reflect his thinking process. As for whether it was easy to recognize or read, it was none of his business. He was just a student, only responsible for writing homework. Hermione would write it again, neatly and neatly. Both Harry and Ron were more willing to refer to Hermione's homework. Of course, whether Hermione was willing or not was another matter. Ron was playing with the blue flame, which looked like a dandelion or a ball of cotton wool. Ron blew the flame up, then flew down and then he blew another breath from below, and the flame flew up again. The fluttering flames were like butterflies, fluttering their blue wings. Ron was addicted to this game. Harry was still reading the book The Magic of Quidditch. No one cared about the 700 kinds of fouls. What was even more interesting was the interesting talk about Quidditch. In the 1473 World Cup, all 700 fouls occurred, which is interesting to think about. Also, the Seeker was usually the smallest and fastest player, and Harry thought that was him. Later, he saw that the most serious Quidditch accidents usually happened to Seekers. Harry shook his head again. He was definitely not like this. Deaths rarely occur during Quidditch matches, but referees disappear and are usually found in the Sahara Desert a few months later. Harry read the book and laughed from time to time, like an idiot. This is his only way to relax and relieve stress during busy hours. Many friends said that the name Muggle Lives Matter was too discouraging, so I changed it to the name Muggle Lives Matter, which focused on being obedient. Chapter 59. Lauren quickly finished her homework and blew the blue flames around with Ron. The two people raised their faces, you shouted, I shouted, the fireball was passed around, the two of them had a great time, like two silly dogs playing with a ball. Hermione tucked the revised manuscript into a book and planned to do the rest of the copying work over the weekend. The girl raised her head, looked at the two idiots playing with fire, and then looked at Harry, who was staring at a book and giggling from time to time. She felt a deep despair in her heart. What should I do? These friends don't seem to be normal. Lauren, how are you communicating with Lee Jordan? Hermione asked for a topic. Who? Lauren didn't stop. Lee Jordan said that explaining this kind of thing depends entirely on on-the-spot performance. Who? We can't predict the course of the game. There's nothing to practice. Phew. Lauren thinks this makes sense. At least from this point of view, the two of them are in harmony. The two were so close that Hermione could vaguely feel like there were small drops of water on the back of her hand. Hermione's expression became horrified, and his spittle flew onto her. Enough. With her temples bulging, Hermione took out her wand and tapped Lauren to stop this seemingly silly, boring, and annoying game. She put the blue flame back into the jar. Why do you suddenly want to be the narrator? Hermione put the jar away, and Ron was also curious about this question. Judging from his previous behavior, Lauren was not good at flying and didn't like Quidditch. Lauren had a confused expression on his face, whether it's Wong Tai-sin or Guan Shen, they all start with explanations and finally develop into poisonous milk. Gods will kill gods when they block them, and Buddhas will kill Buddhas. Hermione didn't understand a word of what was said, but that didn't stop her from understanding what Lauren wanted to do. This person has a bad personality and always does things he thinks are interesting. This was evident from the very beginning when the animagus instigated him to touch Professor McGonagall. There was no other reason than to enjoy himself. He 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 he. Harry suddenly laughed out loud when he saw something funny nearby. It was so silly. Lauren and Ron couldn't bear to look at him and were about to interrupt him. Harry Potter. Snape had just seen a few people in the corridor. Last night, he was on guard against Quirrell and accidentally broke into Lu Wei's room. He injured his leg and limped over. What's that in your hand? Snape looked at the person in front of him and couldn't help but look into those green eyes. Harry knew that as a student it was best not to contradict the professor. He said nothing, silently closed the book and handed it to Snape to read. The Magical Quidditch. Snape looked at the title on the cover, his eyes twitching, feeling inexplicably irritated. Quidditch, Quidditch, like his annoying father, he was so proud of having a little talent in Quidditch that his laughter could be heard in the corridor. Library books are not allowed to be taken out of the castle. 5 points will be deducted from Gryffindor. Without giving anyone time to react, Snape turned to look at Lauren and said, "You don't have to come to the office tonight." After saying that, he limped away with the book in hand. Lauren was a little confused. Hey? Oh, okay. The four of them watched Snape's back walking away. He made up a temporary rule. Harry said angrily. Hermione noticed something else. What happened to Professor Snape's foot? I don't know, but he must be in terrible pain. Ron said with a gloating smile. Lauren thought thoughtfully and smacked his lips. Dumbledore had tricked one of his own. Thinking about it carefully, it seems that this is the only record Lu Wei has, and Snape is too miserable. The Gryffindor common room was noisy, everyone was talking about tomorrow's Quidditch match. Harry, Ron, and Hermione were sitting together by the window. Hermione was checking Harry and Ron's charms homework. Hermione refused to let them copy her homework directly. The two could have directly referred to Lauren's answer, but Lauren's homework was full of ghost symbols. They had to carefully identify it to identify whether it was the evil Merrick or the weird Ulrich. This took too much effort and they had this time. You can find the answer by flipping through the book. So they came up with an idea: write simple questions by themselves, fill in an answer at random if they don't know it, and ask Hermione to check it again, and they will know the correct answer. Harry's mind was not on his homework. He was thinking about tomorrow's game, and the more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. When he was panicking some time ago, he would take out the Magic of Quidditch and read the interesting stories in it to relieve his emotions. The book was confiscated. Why? Harry felt a surge of anger from his fear. Why should I be afraid of Snape? Harry stood up and said to Hermione and Ron, "I'm going to find Snape to get my book back. Do you want to come with me? Are you crazy?" Although Ron didn't speak, his eyes clearly showed this meaning. Hermione shook her head too. "Then I'll go myself." The rejection of the two people made Harry's inner impulse even stronger, and he turned around and left. Walking out of the lounge, the slightly cooler air woke him up. There was a hint of retreat in his heart, but it would be too embarrassing to go back at this time. Harry came up with a good idea, and it would be hard for Snape to refuse him if other professors were around. He planned to try his luck in the staff room. On the other side, Hogwarts basement. Lauren followed the already familiar road all the way to the door of Snape's office. "I told you don't have to come over tonight." Snape's voice was higher than usual, sounding a little annoyed. There was someone inside, and the office's defense and warning magic were not activated, so Lauren pushed the door open and went in. Snape was grading homework. "Let me see you, Professor." Lauren didn't know why he came. Maybe it was because Snape helped him prepare Wolfsbane potion, maybe it was because he gave him more in-depth potion knowledge, maybe it was because they got along with each other every Friday night, which made him feel that he and Snape Pu's relationship was less distant. Snape ignored Lauren, still lowering his head. "Why not try fresh food?" Lauren took the initiative to mention Snape's leg injury. Snape suddenly raised his head and stared at Lauren. This sentence seemed to stimulate him. "Stupid thing. All the knowledge about potions you learned before was in vain. I don't even know that Baixian can only treat superficial wounds. Do you think I'm as stupid as you? Do you think that I, the potions professor, don't even know about Baixian? Or do you just make some self-righteous suggestions without knowing anything at all?" Snape spat out these words in rapid succession, with anger and without thinking. Lauren knew that this was a sign of emotions that had been building up for too long and could no longer be suppressed, but he didn't feel angry at all. I haven't seen any internet trolls in the 21st century, and this is not even an introduction. The atmosphere fell silent. Such a scene gave Snape a sense of familiarity. The same scene seemed to have happened many years ago. The same anger swept his mind, and he blurted out the words without thinking. The time has changed, the place has changed, the people have changed. Snape knew that he was a professor now and Lauren was just a student, and the two did not have a deep friendship. Even if Lauren took out his wand and killed him now, Snape would not regret the previous abuse. He would never experience the pain of losing Lily again, but the emotions that had been brewing in his heart for decades were like a broken wine jar, and the smell of ethanol was everywhere. After a long silence, Snape said, "I'm sorry, I lost my temper a little." Snape apologized. Lauren thought this scene was simply horrifying, but he was not a fool and would not say such stupid lines as what did you say? Lauren acted as if he didn't hear anything and said, "Would you like to go to Madame Pomfrey's?" Snape leaned his head on the chair and closed his eyes. "No, I asked Filch to get some medicine for me. You can help me go to the staff room to fill it up." Harry came to the staff room and knocked on the door, but no one answered. Could Snape have left the book in here? That would be such a blessing. Harry decided it was worth a try. He pushed the door open a crack and looked inside. A terrifying sight appeared in front of him. There were 3 people in the room: Snape, Filch and Lauren. Snape lifted his robes above his knees. One of his legs was bloody. Filch was helping Snape bandage his wounds. Lauren looked on. Baixian can only deal with superficial wounds. For more serious wounds, it needs to be combined with other herbs. Snape said. Filch put a bandage on the wound. Hiss, Snape gasped, "Damn it, how is it possible to guard 3 heads at the same time?" Harry's pupils shrank when he heard this. Snape's injury was caused by Lu's bite. After hearing this terrible news, he wanted to close the door and leave. "Potter!" Snape quickly turned his head and put down his robe to cover the wound. Lauren was also surprised. He didn't remember this scene in the movie. Harry felt his windpipe tightening and gasping for breath, and said quickly, "I wonder if I can get my book back." "Get out! Now!" Harry hurriedly left and made his way upstairs back to the lounge. "Did you get the book?" Ron looked at Harry, who was breathing rapidly. Hermione was curious too. Harry took a moment to catch his breath, regained his composure, lowered his voice, and told them everything he had just seen. "Do you know what this means?" Harry held his breath. "On Halloween, he just wanted to get past Lu's guard. I saw him at that time. He was looking for the thing guarded by the 3-headed dog. I bet he put the troll in there to distract people." Hermione's eyes widened. "I know he's not very good, but the professor will never steal something that Dumbledore keeps safe." Ron denied this statement. "To be honest, Hermione, you always think that the professor will be fine. But I think Snape can do anything." At this point, Ron also became curious. What is he looking for? What is that big dog guarding? Hermione made a suggestion. "Didn't Harry say that Lauren is here? Maybe we can ask Lauren. It was Lauren who saved our lives. Logically speaking, we shouldn't doubt Lauren." Ron said, "But what if he is cursed by Snape? You know, he has to go to Snape's office every Friday. Who knows what they are doing?" But Hermione couldn't say anything about Lauren and the werewolves. This was Lauren's privacy. She couldn't say anything to refute, and her face turned red with anxiety. Harry was a little confused, but Lauren said from the beginning that there was a way to deal with the 3-headed dog. If he was on Snape's side, Snape would not be bitten. That's just what he said. Who knows if there is really a way? Ron retorted. Hermione thought about whether Snape had blackmailed Lauren with the wolfsbane potion. Lauren had to pretend to be with Snape for the potion, but did not really help Snape. Following this line of thinking, everything seemed to make sense, and the little witch confirmed this guess. She wanted to find a chance to talk to Lauren alone. Hermione didn't realize that because she was worried about Lauren, her previous firm belief that the professor was fine had unknowingly changed. Harry mentally agreed with Ron's statement, but he didn't say anything. The discussion between several people continued until Lauren came back. The scene just now was not in the movie. Lauren didn't know that one scene stretched so many imaginations of the Harrys and the 3 of them, and the Harrys and the others didn't ask for some reason. In this way, the 4 people had a wonderful misunderstanding. Until before going to bed, Harry's mind was still buzzing with this question, and he couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Chapter 60. Now on the field is the Gryffindor Quidditch team. Lauren's voice is full of passion, really like a dedicated narrator. On a high platform beside the stadium, Lauren and Lee Jordan were sitting next to Professor McGonagall. The explanations are all under the close supervision of Professor McGonagall. This is why Professor McGonagall easily agreed to Lauren. He can't change the world. What you're looking at now is the youngest player ever to find a player, Harry Potter. Except for Slytherin, students from other houses gave Harry cheers and applause. The sound could be heard in the Gryffindor auditorium. Harry's face turned red even in such cold weather. The one next to you, the captain and goalkeeper of the Gryffindor team, Oliver Wood. As a handsome guy from the sports department, Wood is very popular with some girls, and the cheers and applause he received were equally enthusiastic. Lauren introduced chasers Katie Bell, Angelina Johnson, and Aaliyah Spinnet in turn. Finally the beaters, the Weasley twins, George and Fred. The two brothers rode broomsticks together in a small circle around the court, pretending to be big stars, greeting the audience and blowing kisses. Professor McGonagall was very satisfied with the newly added introduction. At least it seemed that the atmosphere was much more lively. After Lauren introduced the Gryffindor team, it was Lee Jordan's turn to introduce the Slytherin team. Jordan picked up the microphone in front of him and said calmly, "In front of them is the Slytherin team. Let's leave the time to the referee, Mrs. Hooch. What kind of introduction is this?" The Slytherin players were so angry that their noses were twisted. They originally planned to fly around the venue when they were introduced, but Lee Jordan skipped it in one sentence. In the Slytherin auditorium, a group of wizards led by Malfoy shouted, "There is something shady here, something shady." Most students from other colleges were amused by this contrast. Everyone in Gryffindor introduced carefully, but it was Slytherin's turn and he only had half a sentence. "That's so interesting." Seamus laughed and fell on Hagrid. Hagrid's own stomach trembled and his beard twitched wildly with laughter. Jordan. Professor McGonagall was so old that she actually didn't dare to look at Snape in the faculty auditorium on the other side. This really wasn't arranged by me, Professor McGonagall thought, although she also found it interesting. Mrs. Hooch blew the silver whistle, and 15 broomsticks rose into the sky. The quaffle was immediately snatched by Angelina Johnson of Gryffindor. "She is an excellent chaser." Lee Jordan looked at Angelina's back with fascination. "Look at how strong her figure is. How charming her face is." Professor McGonagall was immersed in the game and had no reaction when she heard the first half of the sentence. When she heard the second half, she turned around and yelled, "Jordan." Lee Jordan was very sensible. "I'm sorry, Professor." Lauren continued to explain. Angelina passed by others all the way, and was eventually cornered by Slytherin. Do these despicable scum only bully the smaller ones? There was something wrong with what he said, but it wasn't too serious. Professor McGonagall only glared at Lauren, indicating that he should pay attention to his wording. On the court, Angelina passed the ball between the walls. Beautiful. The ball went to Area Spinnet, and the Slytherin idiot couldn't even touch the ball's ass. "Lauren!" Professor McGonagall scolded. "I'm sorry, Professor." Lee Jordan spoke up as Lauren was being scolded. The ball passed from Aria's hand. "Oops, Slytherin Captain Marcus Flint got the ball." Lauren took over. He flew towards the scoring ring. No, he didn't think he could score. There is not a single curse word or derogatory word in this sentence. But just such simple words, combined with Lauren's strange tone, are very irritating. When Seamus and Ron in the audience heard this sentence, their eyes lit up. This sentence is interesting. When Marcus Flint, the captain of Slytherin, heard this, he felt inexplicably angry and threw the ball straight away from the scoring ring. The purpose was too obvious and the route was very easy to predict. Goalkeeper Wood simply blocked the ball. Wood felt that the ball was very easy to defend. Now it's Gryffindor Katie Bell with the ball, and she passes the ball to Angelina. Lee Jordan explained. Angelina is heading towards the Slytherin goal. She's flying up and down. May pitch at any time. Lauren explained. Slytherin's goalkeeper Blake's head looks like a pumpkin. Can he guess the path of the ball? Goalkeeper Blake flies up. How could he fly up? A pumpkin head can guess that Angelina won't throw the ball from above. Blackie flew down. Fly down now. What kind of stupid decision is this? Even if the troll comes, he will be better at guarding the gate. After hearing this, Blake's blood pressure rose rapidly and he felt very irritable. Angelina took action at the right time. Clang! Angelina scored. Warm cheers pierced the cold air. Angelina fist-bumped with her teammates to celebrate, with smiles on their faces. Honestly, I feel like it's easier to attack. The Slytherin players looked at them fiercely. Score for Gryffindor. I have seen a troll. I said he is not as good as a troll, but he is not as good as a troll. Lauren's voice echoed in the stadium. Seamus thought this sentence was even funnier than before. Ha 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 ha, Lauren has indeed seen a troll. Dean laughed with him and fell onto Hagrid's belly. Shady story. Shady story. Malfoy shouted. Professor McGonagall was immersed in the joy of scoring, and then she held Lauren down and warned him a few times. The game continued, and the Slytherin players became violent. From time to time, they would kick people on broomsticks and deliberately swing their bats at the Gryffindor players. But they were all small moves, and they were done from an angle that Mrs. Huochi couldn't see, so there was no way to impose a penalty. Angelina was almost knocked down several times. The cheers in the audience gradually quieted down and turned into exclamations. Hermione frowned. Quidditch was indeed too barbaric. These scum, Slytherins are no different from savage trolls, only trolls can hit people with sticks. Professor McGonagall pursed her lips tightly, but did not stop Lauren after hearing these words. Slytherin scores frequently with despicable behavior. It's really shameful. This paragraph was mainly narrated by Lee Jordan. The atmosphere became increasingly tense, with both sides getting angry. Lauren had just made it on a whim, and suddenly wanted to show off in front of the whole school and give them a little verbal shock. Now he is afraid that if he keeps talking too much, there may be a large-scale brawl on the court today. Slytherin became feral, and Harry almost got hit by a bludger several times. Wood asked him to go aside first and wait until he saw the golden snitch before entering. Just as he dodged another bludger flying towards his head, the broom under him suddenly became disobedient and began to tumble erratically. Lauren wasn't worried about Harry. Dumbledore was on the sidelines. Lauren felt that even without Snape and Hermione, nothing would happen to Harry if Quirrell was smoking. It wasn't until a fire was lit in the faculty auditorium, interrupting Quirrell's spell, that Harry settled down and captured the golden snitch to win. Jubilant cheers rang out repeatedly among the Gryffindor students, and the players flew around Harry to celebrate their victory. Seamus and Dean gathered a group of young wizards around the Slytherin students, repeating the same words. No, 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 you don't think you can win. I learned this from Lauren. They found that such simple words, combined with a wonderful intonation, are like a spell, which can absorb the good mood of others and transform it into their own good mood. The stinker the Slytherin students looked, the happier they were, as if they had eaten something delicious. This feeling of enjoyment was fascinating. The expression of pleasure on Gryffindor's face matched those words, and the mockery became even stronger, and the faces of the little snakes became even more ugly. This seems to form some kind of positive feedback. Lauren doesn't know it yet, but he's about to make waves at Hogwarts. Chapter 61. Evening, Gryffindor Common Room. The entire lounge was brightly lit. Candlesticks and various magic lamps were placed everywhere upstairs and downstairs, and firewood was dancing in the fireplace. The whole of Gryffindor was celebrating today's victory, with the twins bringing in all kinds of food, drinks, and even butterbeer from the kitchen. Wood had a drunken blush on his face, his eyes were bright, and he was talking loudly. I knew Harry would be an excellent seeker. Twin brothers eating strange magic candies. A mouse ate ice, and its teeth trembled with the cold, and they collided together, making a rattling sound. Another little urchin ate pepper and breathed fire out of his mouth. The two people breathed cold air/fire at each other, looked at each other, and burst into laughter. Seamus' eyes lit up when he saw it. He pulled Dean and asked, what would happen if he ate the ice rat and the pepper naughty boy at the same time? After hearing this, Neville quickly stopped the two of them. Don't try it. Uncle Ambrosio said that someone was admitted to St. Mungo's Hospital for doing this. Ambrosio is the owner of Honeyduke's candy shop. When Seamus and Dean heard this, they said in unison, no, 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 no one would dare to do this, right? The smell was so overpowering that Lauren frowned and looked like an old man on the subway looking at his phone. Where did you learn this saying? Lauren said. Seamus blinked, I learned from you. Dean added, we had to deal with Slytherin people like this today, and it was quite enjoyable. Lauren slapped his forehead in pain, I am a sinner. Harry, Ron, and Hermione on the other side did not fully integrate into this atmosphere. They chatted with Hagrid after the game and learned Nico Flamel's name, and Hermione saw Snape hexing Harry. Now the three of them were even more sure that Snape was not a good person. The three deduced that the thing Lua was guarding involved Dumbledore and a man named Nico Flamel. Snape wanted to get the thing and kill Harry. As for Lauren, Hermione proposed that Lauren should not be involved in this matter. Snape threatened Lauren, but Lauren did not cooperate with Snape. They could not embarrass Lauren. Harry and Ron agreed. The twin brothers walked over, one on the left and the other on the right. Each of them lifted Lauren up with one hand and carried him to the crowd. If you ask me, today's victory is inseparable from Lauren. He is the 8th member of our team. This is something all the Gryffindor Quidditch players admit. With Lauren's commentary, their games are easier. Everyone cheered in unison, throwing Lauren up, catching him again, throwing him up and catching him again. After a few times, Lauren shouted loudly, "No, put me down, put me down." At this time, under the leadership of Seamus, everyone began to say, "No, no, 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 someone will die." Regardless of Lauren's feelings, they threw him up again. Lauren was crying in his heart, "I deserve this, I am a sinner." The merry party went on till late. At the end, Professor McGonagall comes in and warns everyone that it's time to rest. The red-faced Wood ran to Professor McGonagall, trying to coax Professor McGonagall into throwing him up. But he was the only one in the audience who was really drunk. The others were still sober. They were silent and did not dare to cooperate with him. They all pretended not to hear Wood's heckles. Percy was about to cry. Everyone thought that Professor McGonagall was going to turn Wood into something and teach him a lesson. Surprisingly, Professor McGonagall just asked Wood's roommate to take Wood back to bed and let everyone disperse. Professor McGonagall was also very happy with today's victory. For nearly a month, the three little ones carefully avoided Lauren, and they were busy looking for information about Nico Flamel. But it was too obvious that they had guilty consciences and did not dare to face Lauren. Once Neville asked Harry if they had any trouble with Lauren. Hermione realized later that they couldn't alert the enemy like this. Several people got together with Lauren again, went to class and after class together, and did homework together in the library. Only Nico Flamel's matter was not mentioned in front of Lauren. An afternoon in the library doing homework. Lauren put away his finished homework and looked at the three people next to him. Harry was holding a copy of The Great Wizards of the 20th Century, Hermione was holding Major Discoveries of Modern Magic and Research on the Development of Modern Witchcraft, and Ron had his head buried in the list of famous contemporary magicians. Little by little, I could see that I was in a very sleepy state. Lauren patted Ron and said, "You drooled all over the book." Ron raised his head suddenly, his sleepy little face could not open his eyes, and he wiped his face with his hands randomly. "Where is it? Where is it?" Harry also raised his head, his eyes unfocused, shaking his head aimlessly, looking ahead. Although he didn't sleep, he couldn't read the book at all. He stared blankly at the book, and his mind had already flown to nowhere. It's so stupid. The two teammates are really stupid. That was the only thought in Hermione's head. Ha! Lauren couldn't help laughing. "I've finished my homework. You can take a look if you want to refer to it." He then looked at Hermione. "Hermione, come out with me." With that said, he walked out of the library. When Harry and Ron heard that nothing happened to them, they lowered their heads again. One of them started nodding, and the other's eyes began to lose focus. When Hermione heard this, her heart began to beat. Does Lauren know something? Should I tell him? What should I say? For some reason, Hermione felt uncomfortable at the thought of cheating on Lauren. With uneasy thoughts, he followed Lauren blankly and walked out of the library. Lauren found an aisle where no one was, and turned to look at Hermione. Not long after the Quidditch match, it started to snow in Hogwarts. Everyone put on winter clothes and added sweaters under the wizard robes, and their bodies became bulging. Hermione was the same, all wrapped up, with a bright red and yellow Gryffindor towel wrapped around her neck. The fluffy hair accentuates the blush of baby fat on her face. When she smiles, her two front teeth are exposed. The whole person looks like a little squirrel, very cute. Lauren looked at it and unconsciously wanted to tease him. "Are you hiding something from me?" Lauren said. Hermione was a little anxious and wanted to explain, I didn't deliberately hide it from you. We are." Before he finished speaking, Lauren interrupted, are you looking for Nico Flamel? Hermione was so surprised that she opened her mouth slightly and looked at Lauren with doubts in her eyes. Her whole body said, how do you know? The expression of the little squirrel eating the whale was so cute, Lauren was eager to move. You are all looking through the great wizards of the 20th century and a directory of famous contemporary magicians. Who wouldn't guess? Before Hermione could say anything, Lauren immediately said, come to the abandoned classroom in the magic mirror alone tonight, and I'll tell you. After that, he walked away. Hermione's mind was left a little stuck. She couldn't quite figure it out. She could only be sure that Lauren would not harm her. In the evening, Hermione went to the appointment alone. When he opened the door, Lauren was already waiting in the empty classroom. A desk and 2 chairs were placed in the middle of the abandoned classroom. There was a black cloth covering something on the table, which was piled in a heap on the table. Lauren asked Hermione to sit down and looked at Hermione seriously. I know the Nico Flamel you are looking for, but I can't tell you directly. You should know some spells about secrecy. Hermione nodded. The Fidelity Charm, the Unbreakable Vow, and some other spells can achieve this purpose. I need you to help me break the spell so I can tell you the truth. If Hermione still remembered the time when Lauren tricked her into petting the cat during her first transfiguration class, she would find that Lauren's tone at that time was exactly the same as now. What do you need me to do? Hermione's tone was firm. She wanted to find out the truth as soon as possible and rescue Lauren. Lauren pulled off the black cloth. The table was covered with chocolate frogs and cockroaches. How can these things break the spell? Hermione looked at Lauren, with such confusion on her face. Eat them all. Lauren's voice was erratic. Hermione felt like there was a big question mark on her head. Are you sure you can break the curse this way? Lauren reassured, Hermione, you must know that magic is all kinds of weird, and their methods of breaking are also all kinds of weird. Would I lie to you? Lauren didn't have enough confidence in this sentence, so he expressed it in another way, would I lie to you about this kind of thing? Hermione hesitated for a long time, and finally plucked up the courage to pick up a package of chocolate frogs and tear open the package. Looking at the beating legs of the chocolate frog, Hermione's hands trembled, resisting the urge to throw it out, and encouraged herself enough before putting it in her mouth. The sweet chocolate melted, and the sweet core inside burst out with various fragrances, suppressing Hermione's discomfort. Hee, is it delicious? Lauren teased. Hermione nodded sheepishly, which brought a strange feeling. She obviously hated candies that looked like this, but the candies brought her a pleasant feeling. Lauren was looking at the pictures included in the package, and when he saw the characters on the pictures, he said in a brisk tone, I'm lucky, the first one is Dumbledore. As long as things have a beginning, it won't be so difficult later. The next few chocolate frogs were eaten by Hermione smoothly. Hermione even felt less disgusted by this food. Hermione didn't see it, but Lauren couldn't stop the evil smile on his face. Chapter 62. The way Hermione gnashed her teeth in disgust was so interesting, and Lauren's bad taste was completely satisfied. Not long after, when Hermione got used to the chocolate frog and her expression calmed down, Lauren lowered his head and sorted the pictures one by one. Nose-picking Cleona, medieval witch, put it away. Renaissance Paracelsus. There is also a portrait of this healing wizard in the corridor. Dumbledore, take it out and set it aside. Although it looked like a pile of candies on the table, the packaging took up a large part of it, and the chocolate frog finished it in no time. I have a small stack of pictures, including several pictures of Dumbledore. Hermione had never eaten so many candies so indulgently in her life. Chocolate caused the brain to secrete dopamine, releasing a happy mood from the heart. I feel happy but feel that I shouldn't be so happy, it feels weird. Hermione felt that in the future, even if there was no reason, she could eat chocolate frogs as a snack normally. She also plans to take some back and let her parents try it. Dad will definitely be interested in this thing. But the pile of cockroaches is different. We cannot accept that cockroaches are engraved in genes and physiology. Hermione looked at the cockroaches crawling in the box, her scalp was numb, and her voice was timid, is there really no other way? You have to finish it all. Lauren is a complete bad boy. Hermione struggled internally for a while, and finally summoned up the courage. With a look of determination to die, she shrunk her little head and stretched out her hand, pinching a cockroach pile with her thumb and index finger. Candy struggled restlessly in her hand, and the small thorns on the arthropod's legs scratched the girl's fingers, tickling her. The tingling sensation seemed to be transmitted to her back through her fingers. Ugh! Hermione couldn't bear it anymore and collapsed. I can't do it. She let go and let the cockroaches fall onto the table. The cockroach-like candy automatically crawled into the box. Oh, that seems to be too much. Lauren stopped playing pranks and said, No, don't cry. Just forget it if you can't eat. Hermione blushed. She used to only cry like this in front of her parents. Later, when she was older, she thought it was too childish. She was already 11 years old, and even if she cried, she wouldn't whine. It would be too imageless. Hermione's face was burning. She seemed to be acting coquettishly to someone close to her just now, but luckily Lauren didn't notice. Looking at Lauren secretly, Hermione raised her hand to wipe her face, then reached out to grab a handful of candy and put it into her mouth. The feeling of bugs came again, and Hermione started crying again while eating. The rich aroma of chocolate, the syrup with lemon snow core inside, sour and sweet, and a little refreshing taste. Lauren slowly approached and asked, Does it taste good? Woohoo! Hermione cried even louder. When she heard the question, the girl sniffed and said angrily, It's delicious. Lauren couldn't help laughing, crying, and eating at the same time, and said that the delicious little squirrel was so funny. You're still laughing. It's all because of you. Hermione became angry when she saw Lauren's smile, reached out and grabbed a handful of cockroaches and stuffed them into Lauren's mouth. Lauren already liked eating this food, so he followed Hermione and ate the candies on the table with her. In the abandoned empty classroom, the dim light reflected the shadows of two little people. Sharing interesting candies, one couldn't help but laugh out loud from time to time, while the other sniffed and occasionally slapped the person next to him in annoyance. The candies on the table are finished. After a long time, Hermione calmed down, with some syrup on her lips, her eyes watery, and she looked at Lauren expectantly. Is the spell lifted? Ahem. This was so sinful, Lauren condemned himself, looking around, wondering if Hermione would stab him to death with her wand if he confessed at this moment. Let's talk about Nico Flamel. Hermione didn't notice the problem with this sentence and listened to Lauren's words carefully. Lauren took out a picture of Dumbledore and showed it to Hermione. It read. Dumbledore's well-known contributions include. In 1945, he defeated the dark wizard Grindelwald and discovered the 12 uses of the fire dragon's blood. He and his partner Nico Flamel were very effective in alchemy. You should be able to find information about Nico Flamel in alchemy books. He is an unavoidable mountain in the field of alchemy. Lauren said. Hermione nodded, taking the news to heart. Lauren said nothing else, nothing about his acquaintance with Nico Flamel, nothing about the Philosopher's Stone. The growth tasks assigned by Dumbledore need to be completed by themselves. The Iron Triangle must take the main line of Savior by themselves. No one knows what the consequences will be if he is mixed in as a variable. For a while, he arrogantly thought that he could rely on foresight and knowledge of the plot, and use the secret book to push the Voldemort boss all the way. The incident with the troll made him realize the reality. He still couldn't think of any way to defeat the troll without hurting the three little ones at their age. The movie in his previous life was a movie. This was a real magical world, where people would get hurt, and any danger could kill the 11-year-old. Lauren was worried that if he participated in the plot, he might become a supporting role tool, like Cedric. Voldemort was defeated, the Iron Triangle was fine, and no one would notice the people on the casualty list lining up to receive lunch boxes. Of course, Lauren wouldn't sit back and sit in fear all day long, worrying about what kind of storm the butterfly's wings would stir up. The accident of the flying lesson and the outcome of the troll all show that there is still a corrective power in the plot, which ultimately points to that result. When you don't have the ability to protect yourself, just be a good student with peace of mind, and occasionally speed up the Iron Triangle. As long as you don't personally get involved, what can you do to him? Be a happy person in this magic school, bring happiness to everyone, and encourage Hermione to try bravely like today. How could such a good person not live long? Lauren thought about it. Quirrell would not take action until the end of the semester. Telling Hermione in advance that Nico Flamel would not have a big impact on the plot. In this way, Lauren gained happiness, Hermione got the answer, and it was another win-win day. The two left the classroom and walked back to the Gryffindor common room together. I was in a confined space just now, the light was dim, my mind was a little blurry, and I didn't notice many things. Now that the cold wind was blowing, Hermione was much more awake and felt that something was not quite right. Hermione asked, "Lauren, what kind of magic did you use candy to break the curse? Where did you see it?" It was okay if Hermione didn't ask, but when she asked Lauren, it reminded her of the scene where Hermione was crying and eating a pile of cockroaches, while still saying they were delicious. Ha ha ha. Lauren couldn't help laughing, "I saw it on your face. During the day, your face just says come and lie to me. I knew it, I knew it, I knew it." Hermione clenched her fists, "Damn it. You're dead." The running footsteps stirred up the wind in the corridor, causing the candlelight to sway. The shadows of the two people stretched on the ground and overlapped. Chapter 63. There were layers of snow piled up in the woods, on the roof of the castle, and in the courtyard, and the black lake was frozen bare. Snowflakes like goose feathers were falling outside. Hermione and Lauren sat by a window in the common room, each holding a tome. Harry and others walked around them when they saw this scene. The tome was too scary. Lauren was reading the last book on Snape's reading list. According to Snape, after reading these books, Lauren had barely gotten started with potions. Snape hadn't let Lauren take snake venom for a long time, and his job had become much easier recently. Lauren guessed that the snakes were hibernating. There are 25 books in total, and Lauren thought he would be able to read them before Christmas. However, after getting the fantasy book, Lauren could always take some time to read these books after Flamel's teaching, and the progress accelerated a lot. Hermione had already found out about Nico Flamel and knew about the Philosopher's Stone. She read this passage to Lauren. Ancient alchemy involved the creation of the Philosopher's Stone, a magical substance with amazing powers. The Philosopher's Stone can turn any metal into pure gold, and can also create an elixir of immortality that will make those who drink it immortal. There have been many reports about the Philosopher's Stone over the centuries, but the only remaining Philosopher's Stone belongs to the famous alchemist and opera lover Nicholas Flamel. He celebrated his 665th birthday last year and now lives in seclusion in Devon with his wife Perinal, 658. Lauren knew everything about Nico from Nico's autobiography, the general interpretation of hieroglyphics, and had never carefully read other people's books introducing and evaluating Nico Flamel. He was a little stunned when he heard this part. Good guy, even the place where people live in seclusion is marked. What kind of seclusion is this? Hermione put down the book, looked at Lauren, hesitated, and asked, "Do you know that Snape wants to steal the Sorcerer's Stone?" Being teased by Lauren that night, I was so angry that I didn't ask these things. Lauren continued to read the tome and made a note in his notebook about the difference between morning dew and midnight dew. Professor Snape has a bad personality, but he is a good person. Hermione looked around and said, "On Quidditch Day, I saw Snape jinxing Harry's broom with my own eyes." Of course people want to believe what they see. Lauren continued to take notes, but it's even more important to look for what you can't see. Lauren didn't plan to tell Hermione what he knew. Without evidence, it was impossible to tell him that he knew the plot. After finishing speaking, Lauren thought about it for a moment. How does this sentence sound like Dumbledore's style? I'm still young, I can't become the Riddler so early. Lauren quickly added, "You can pay attention to Professor Quirrell." "Why?" Hermione asked. "Snape is an old professor and has been at Hogwarts for many years. Quirrell's time at Hogwarts is much shorter, and Quirrell is sneaky and hidden. He is not a good person at first glance." Lauren said how he felt when watching the movie. He could tell at a glance that Quirrell was not a good person. It turned out that there was no reliable reason, it was all based on speculation. Hermione was unconvinced. "You just want to believe what you see and don't want to believe what you don't see." Lauren closed the book. "That's wrong, I won't help anyone. Let me tell you, Principal Dumbledore is still in the castle, what are you kids worried about?" Lauren really thought so, but he also knew that even if he said so, the three little ones would still do what they thought was right. They are Gryffindors, upholding justice and having courage. On the contrary, there is something wrong with my mentality of not caring about this kind of thing. But he is not the protagonist, so his life must be at stake. Aren't you a child too? After that night, Hermione felt relieved knowing that Snape had not blackmailed Lauren. But Lauren was still trying to excuse Snape, and Hermione thought that Lauren and Snape had gotten close to each other over time. Hermione planned to work with Harry and Ron to expose Snape's conspiracy and prevent Lauren from being embarrassed. On the other side, Harry found that he would bump into Snape wherever he went, and Snape's eyes would always follow him. Harry believed that Snape was following him and wanted to seize the opportunity to kill him when he was alone. With this discovery, Harry never walked alone wherever he went, and took Ron with him whenever he went to the toilet. Lauren found it strange that not only girls went to the bathroom with their best friends, but boys also did this with their best friends. Another Friday. Lauren walked through the dark basement. The basement was even colder in winter. Slytherin's dormitory was still under the Black Lake. The people in the snake yard were really not afraid of the cold. Walking to the door of Snape's office, the dark door opened by itself. "Come right in." Snape's voice came from the storage room further inside. "Okay, Professor." Lauren walked past the office where various specimens were placed and walked into the storage room. Snape was sitting next to the operating table. There were two stoves in front of him. One was empty, and the other was filled with a pink viscous liquid that was bubbling and odorless. "Have you finished reading the books on the list?" "It's over, Professor." Snape took out a green blade of grass and put it into the bubbling pot and stirred it. Purple lines gradually appeared in the middle of the pink liquid, and then spread out, dyeing the entire pot of liquid purple. The purple color gradually deepened, and the liquid took on a strange color and smelled like fermented rotten eggs. Wolfsbane potion. Lauren is very familiar with this. Lauren would come every Friday, and Snape would give the Wolfsbane potion to Lauren half a month before the full moon. The Wolfsbane potion had to be drunk a week in advance, and Lauren had a week to send the things to Grandpa Bates. The previous ones were all finished products, put directly in bottles. This was the first time Lauren saw the scene of Wolfsbane potion being made. Snape put out the fire and closed the lid. Tornado sweep. Snape waved his wand, causing a gust of wind to carry the smell out of the house. "In your opinion, what is a potion?" Lauren was a little confused. Potion refers to any pharmaceutical product that is manufactured, extracted, or semi-synthesized from magical biological sources. Lauren was a little unsure. This would be the first sentence in any introductory potions book, but when Snape asked this, the answer was definitely not that simple. Snape looked at Lauren with disgust. "Just like Miss Know-It-All, she's just a stupid person who can read to death." Lauren's eyes widened and he shouted with personal attack. Potion is essentially another form of magic. In Snape's words, potions, like spells, are expressions of magic. Magic spells have specific spells and casting actions, and potions require specific materials and preparation methods. This fixed process is called a ritual. The wizard completes the ritual and the magic achieves the effect. In the field of magic, skilled wizards can cast spells without a wand and cast spells silently. Potions are different. They are stricter and adhere to the rules. No matter how brilliant the potion master is, he must strictly follow the standard steps and use standard materials to achieve the effect. Potions are more rigorous and advanced magic. Snape said. Lauren thought about Voldemort's process of reshaping his body. The bones of his father, the flesh of his servants, and the blood of his enemies did sound like brewing a potion. That is also an evil magic, an evil ritual that achieves evil effects. Only when you understand the essence of potion can you better grasp its laws. After saying this, Snape did not continue to talk about the potion. He put the cooled Wolfsbane potion into a bottle and handed it to Lauren. He turned around and took out a pair of small glass buttons from the cabinet, one red and one green. "This is the looking glass. You have to find a way for Harry Potter to carry it with him at all times." Snape handed the red glass button to Lauren. Lauren had heard of this thing, used as a warning. He took it, put it in his hand and looked at it curiously. "What does this do?" "It allows me to keep track of what's going on with your stupid roommate at any time," Snape said. Lauren put the button on the countertop, pulled out the magic spell, and tried to cast a thunderbolt pierce on the button. Woo! Before the spell could be uttered, the red button on the table and the other blue button on Snape's hand whistled at the same time. The sound was harsh and sharp. Lauren wanted to tease Snape, but his life was at stake and he didn't dare to say it. He just looked at Snape with a look like "You are so arrogant." During Quidditch, Quirrell wanted to attack Mr. Harry Potter, our savior, but he was stopped by me and the Know-It-All lady. He will definitely take action again. I have been following that stupid thing these days to prevent him from being killed. Stupid Harry Potter actually thought that I wanted to harm him. Incorrigibly stupid. Snape became angrier and angrier as he spoke, adding adjectives every time he mentioned Harry. After speaking, Snape calmed down his emotions and his tone became calm again. "This thing can prevent him from dying in an unknown way. Why didn't you tell Dumbledore?" Lauren asked as usual. Snape's calm face became angry again. Old fool Dumbledore, I don't know how he hired Quirrell as the Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts, and said that he knew everything and had his own arrangements. He is already confused. It was not a good place to stay for a long time, so Lauren took the potion and buttons and ran away. Returned to the Gryffindor common room. Lauren took a piece of string and threaded it through the hole in the middle of the button, making the speculum look like a pendant. Lauren told Harry that it was something his mother had owned back then, from Professor McGonagall. What? Evidence? There is no evidence, just talking, playing the family card. In Harry's opinion, Lauren saved his life before, so there was no need to lie to him. If Lauren wanted to help Snape harm him, it would be more convenient to find an opportunity to poison him. Harry put the pendant on his neck the next day and had a smile on his face the whole day. Lauren's conscience felt a little painful, and she secretly swore that after the incident was over, she would get a real lily thing from Snape to compensate Harry. There must be one at Snape's place, no doubt about it. Chapter 64. Transfiguration Class. Hermione sat in the front row, listening carefully to the lecture and taking meticulous notes. Ron was behind, and he could occasionally hear a word or two, but most of the time his mind wandered to nowhere. Harry put his head on the table, holding the red button pendant hanging around his neck with his fingers, grinning like a fool. Lauren couldn't listen to the lesson and watched Harry giggle. He felt that his conscience was being tortured, it was too painful. Before the matter is over, next week, I will really ask Snape for something from Harry's mother, a photo or something. The more difficult the transformation, the greater the magic power required. Professor McGonagall said on the stage. Ron pricked up his ears when he heard words related to magic. After experiencing the troll incident, several people's magic power increased to varying degrees, and they became more comfortable in releasing some basic spells. Transfiguration class, Charms class, and even Quirrell's Defense against the Dark Arts class, many practical related content became much easier. Ron thought that his magic power would increase the most and he would become the most powerful. But after a while, the results were not as Ron expected. Lauren sparred with Hermione on weekends and had a talent for correcting spells. He also sparred with Flamel in the Book of Fantasy twice a week. He made rapid progress and became proficient in using basic spells. Hermione has solid theoretical knowledge and has learned many spells by herself. With Lauren's guidance, she is better than many second-year students. Harry was purely gifted. He didn't like reading very much, and his theoretical knowledge was just passable. However, once he got the wand in hand, he could always release the spell quickly. Ron was a little frustrated. What kind of monsters were around him? However, his talent is not bad, his magic power has increased, he no longer feels inferior after changing his wand, and his level is higher than that of most first-year students. After Professor McGonagall finished teaching the theoretical knowledge, she asked the students to turn their matchboxes into snuff boxes. She said, "This is related to your final exam." Hermione gathered her energy, used all her strength to deal with the matchbox in front of her, and soon conjured a snuff box. The little witch thought it was not that simple, so she added various hollow patterns and illustrations of various colors on the snuff box. Lauren's mouth twitched when he saw it. "Okay, it's up to you to improve the average level of the class." He conjured up an ordinary snuff box and went on fishing without trying again. Harry and Ron also picked up quickly. Simo tried cautiously. The people around him were old classmates and stayed away from him. Success will not disappoint everyone who works hard. After unremitting efforts, Simo finally. Boom! He blew himself up again. Ha ha ha! Dean laughed the loudest, and the other little wizards also laughed happily. This scene is always indispensable when Seamus is around. The Transfiguration class has been bombed, the Defense against the Dark Arts class has been bombed, and the Charms class has been bombed. Seamus will not miss any opportunity. After the explosion, everyone felt relieved and moved closer to Seamus again. Ron stepped forward and said with a proud tone, "Listen to me, don't wave it hard when you wave the magic spell, just lift it gently and draw a circle, you know." "Oh!" Seamus shouted, "Ron Weasley, do you want to change your name to Ron Granger? You are even more annoying than Hermione before." "More annoying than Malfoy," Dean added. Malfoy is the most hated person among Gryffindor wizards, tied with Professor Snape. The original Hermione always did this kind of thing, but she changed it after the troll incident. She would only give guidance to others when they asked for advice. This was not the first time Ron had done this. The act of pointing others out in a condescending tone gave him a sense of satisfaction that made people uncomfortable. I. Ron apologized angrily, I'm sorry. You said the same thing last class, Neville said weakly. The atmosphere was a little tense, and Ron sat back down next to Harry. I just can't help it. Ron reacted and became the person he hated. Harry finished transforming into a snuff box and continued to play with the red buttons. He smiled and said, no one will remember it. Isn't Hermione our friend now? Ron nodded, I'll try my best. Every time Harry played with his buttons, every time he giggled, he was torturing Lauren's conscience. Lauren felt more and more that the act of lying to someone else's mother was very bad, worse than any previous prank, and the flames of guilt engulfed Lauren. I'm really not a real thing. Lauren decided to go to Snape this Friday to ask for a real thing. If this continues, if Harry smiles, Lauren will want to slap himself twice. In potions class, Snape was writing on the blackboard and taking notes while the students below were catching up with Snape's writing on the blackboard. The content on Snape's blackboard is different from that in the textbook. If you write your homework based on the content in the textbook instead of Snape's blackboard, you will be in trouble. The last person to do this was Michael Corner, who ended up copying the blackboard for that class 100 times. After Snape finished writing, he began to explain the theoretical part according to what was written on the blackboard. Snape always lectured in a tone that was calm and all the words seemed to have the same tone. Harry could force himself to listen at first, but after a while his eyes began to wander and lose focus. His mind was already wandering. He unconsciously put his hand on his chest and pinched the red glass button, thinking about his mother's appearance in the mirror of Ariste and thinking that this button once belonged to his mother. It's like his mother is with him now. What a sin! Lauren couldn't bear to watch this scene, his conscience began to hurt again, and he wanted to slap himself twice. Standing on the podium, Snape immediately saw the giggling Harry. He was too conspicuous among the serious students. No student had ever laughed happily in his class. Snape walked down the stage. As usual, his next step was to roll up his sleeves and give Harry a blow on the head, ask him to get up to answer a slightly over-the-top question, and then slap Gryffindor hard. Point. The students below were also familiar with this process, and they all looked at Snape expectantly. Both Gryffindor and Slytherin are looking forward to it. Slytherin expected their head of house to show off his power, and Gryffindor expected Professor Snape to attack others, so that the rest of the class would be safe for everyone else. Snape walked all the way to Harry, looking at the silly smile on his face, his hands itched. Just as he was about to take action, he saw Harry playing with the red glass button in his hand and fell silent. He knew that button very well, and the other blue one was in his pocket. Snape couldn't figure out why Harry was pinching his buttons with such an indescribable expression. He turned his head, glanced at Lauren with a complicated expression, and returned to the podium to continue his lecture. No points deducted. Other students were surprised. Did Professor Snape change his gender? Lauren could understand what Snape meant. Snape was asking, "What did you do?" Lauren couldn't answer, his conscience was being tortured. Tonight I'm going to see Snape. Chapter 65. On the road from the castle to Hagrid's hut, the four Lorents shrank against the cold wind. There was no class in the afternoon, and Harry did not continue to torture Lauren's conscience. They decided to take this opportunity to visit Hagrid. There is a fireplace in the castle, and maybe some magic to keep warm. It is very warm inside the castle. Only now a few people can really experience the winter in Hogwarts. The four of them put their hands in their sleeves and gathered them in front of their bodies. Most of their faces were tucked into their scarves, covering everything below their eyes. Alas! Ron sighed, why do we have to visit Hagrid in such a cold weather? Harry tightened his grip and said, we haven't been here since it started snowing. Hagrid must miss us. Hermione's teeth were chattering, Hagrid wants to guard the Forbidden Forest, we can't leave him alone. Lauren missed the fur blanket in his box very much. He didn't notice it at the time, but now he thought it was an alchemy item. It had the effect of preventing wind and keeping warm. There was no need for a bonfire on the snow-capped mountains at night. Nico casually used it to set up a street stall and wrap books, and finally fell into his hands. Wrong decision, I will definitely bring it with me next time I go out. After walking into the woods, it's still a short way to Hagrid's hut. Click click click. Harry stretched out his shrinking neck and looked around, did you hear anything? It's the wind, Ron muttered. The four of them continued walking forward. Squeak! A huge spider suddenly sprang out from behind the tree in front, hissing at several people. Ron's eyes almost popped out of his sockets. He had been afraid of spiders since he was a child, let alone such a terrifying monster. The giant spider is about the same size as Hagrid, with thick black hair all over its body. There are 6 slightly smaller eyes next to the huge eyes on the top of its head, which are white. Its claws make a clearly audible clicking sound. A Acromantula. With such obvious features, Lauren recognized it at a glance. Lauren pulled Hermione, and Harry pulled Ron. The four of them quickly backed away, not wanting to have any contact with such dangerous magical creatures. Harry felt as if Ron was under a binding spell, and his whole body was stiff. But the giant spider kept staring at the direction of the four people's footsteps. It was eyeing these little wizards. "We are Hagrid's friends, let us pass." Lauren stepped back and made a tentative sound. Acromantulas can communicate, and their intelligence is not much lower than that of humans. Humans have awakened my hibernation, and I have to pay for it. The Acromantula's voice was so distorted that it was impossible to tell the difference between male and female. Its head has been facing the direction of the four people. Legs stand stiff and stop dead. Burning flames. Lauren and Hermione stood up and cast spells one after another. Lauren's communication was just a test, he never trusted the beast. Hermione, on the other hand, was familiar with Lauren's spell casting and reacted quickly to keep up. Harry also quickly added a petrified all, only Ron was still in a daze. The leg-locking curse hit the Acromantula and immediately locked 5 of its 8 legs tightly together. The giant spider only relied on 3 legs to maintain balance. Hermione's fire spell ignited the black hair on the giant spider's body, and the flames quickly spread all over the body. Finally, the giant spider fell to the ground under the influence of the binding spell. Several people slowly retreated while observing the situation. Compared to the giant monster, which had a thick skin and was almost immune to magic, the Acromantula, which could still be controlled, seemed less scary. Except for Ron, everyone else was not that panicked. After the flames burned the black hair on the giant spider's body, it failed to ignite the giant spider's limbs and quickly extinguished. The Acromantula also broke free from the restraining spell and leg-locking spell. "Go to hell!" The Acromantula shook its jointed limbs and quickly crawled towards several people. Lauren, Hermione, and Harry aimed their wands at the Acromantula. Before they could chant the spell, a dull sound suddenly came from the woods. Boom! 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 Uh-huh! A huge figure rushed out of the bushes, making a small ditch-like scratch on the snow, and Yaya followed behind. "Hagrid!" Harry shouted happily. Hagrid was huge and came flying towards Harry. He didn't even look at Harry and hit the Acromantula. Bang bang bang, a series of loud noises. Hagrid knocked down 7 or 8 big trees with the giant spider before stopping. The 4 Harrys hurriedly followed to check the situation. The Acromantula fell to the ground, most of its limbs were smashed to pieces, and several large holes were opened in its abdomen. White spider web mucus spurted out and condensed into sticky balls and silk webs. It didn't even have time to scream. "Hey, are you okay?" Hagrid asked angrily, a little out of breath, and the fur coat on his body had some tears. The scene just now was so shocking that Lauren and Hermione had not yet recovered. One is a huge spider monster, and the other is a huge humanoid warrior. They collide simply, directly, and quickly to resolve the battle. It was different from any magic battle in their impression, there was no magic at all. No wonder Hagrid can live in the Forbidden Forest. There are few in the entire forest who can withstand the barbaric collision. Ron was confused from beginning to end. It was the first time he saw such a big spider, and his mind was still spinning. Harry shook his head. "How did you know we were here?" Hagrid started talking about the situation. Just now, Yaya suddenly became manic and screamed uneasily. He pulled Hagrid and ran outside. When he got nearby, Hagrid saw the situation of Harry and others. "I was too worried and ran into him in a hurry." "Why is there an Acromantula at the edge of the Forbidden Forest?" "It just said that someone woke it up from hibernation." Hermione wanted to know the reason. Something was not right today. Hagrid was a little sad. These are Aragog's children. They should stay in their lairs in the winter, and no one in the forest will mess with them. The Acromantulas are all the children of his friend Aragog. He just saw that Harry was in danger and couldn't care so much for a while, but now he feels that he can't help Aragog. There must be other people with bad intentions who have entered the depths of the Forbidden Forest. Lauren reminded. Quirrell's body is much weaker than at the beginning of this semester. It must be that they went into the forest to look for blood food and disturbed the hibernating acromantula. Come with me to the house to warm up first, Hagrid greeted a few people and said as he walked, I will go and inform the Centaur's tribe in the evening. I stopped by to see Aragog, but I didn't tell many people about this. Do you want to inform Principal Dumbledore? That makes sense. After entering the hut to warm up, Hagrid poured tea and took out snacks for several people. With the comfort of rockskin cake, he quickly put aside the acromantula matter and talked about some things in school. Harry told Hagrid that he already knew about the Philosopher's Stone. Hagrid felt a little guilty. He felt that it was he who revealed Nico Flamel's name that allowed Harry to find the Philosopher's Stone. This was a disgrace to Dumbledore's trust. When talking about Snape's intention to steal the Sorcerer's Stone, Hermione secretly observed Lauren's expression and was relieved when she saw that he had no special reaction. Hagrid was a little angry with himself and said irritably, Snape would never want to kill a student. Now you all listen to me. This matter has nothing to do with you. This is very dangerous. Forget the road. Way, forget about the Philosopher's Stone and never get involved in this matter again. Harry wisely kept his mouth shut, and Ron and Hermione didn't mention it. Lauren took a sip of tea and remained silent, laughing to death. If the three of them could hear one word of this sentence, they would no longer be Gryffindors. Putting aside the Philosopher's Stone, Hagrid quickly forgot about the previous unpleasantness and started talking about the Christmas vacation. Not long ago, Sirius asked for the flying motorcycle back. You will have an unforgettable Christmas. Harry. Hagrid was happy for Harry. Harry was looking forward to the upcoming Christmas. Chapter 66. It was around 9 o'clock when we arrived at Snape's office and it was completely dark. The wind outside has stopped, and a little bit of moonlight can be seen through the window, and occasionally there will be light streaking across the starry sky. Snape's robes were partly wet on the shoulders. He must have just come back from outside and hadn't had time to change his clothes. He was carefully pouring the black viscous liquid from a bottle and putting it into another bottle with magic patterns engraved on its body. As Lauren approached, he smelled a foul odor and felt dizzy. Stay away, you idiot! Snape didn't even look at Lauren. The venom of the acromantula, a top-quality material, is worth 100 galleons per ounce. Snape said while operating, if I were you, I would take the venom immediately after the acromantula dies. After Hagrid sent Lauren and his party away, he informed Dumbledore about the acromantula and others entering the Forbidden Forest. Neither Dumbledore nor Snape were there during dinner. Lauren guessed that Dumbledore took Snape to dispose of the body during that time and only came back now. Lauren said nothing after listening to Snape's words. From the experience of those who have experienced it, silence is best at this time. This is an old acromantula. Its eyes have faded. It is weak and moves slowly. Even the looking glass on Potter's body cannot be triggered. As the acromantula ages, its eyes turn white, indicating that it is blind, its body becomes fragile, and its strength is not enough. After being awakened from hibernation, he couldn't deal with the prey in the Forbidden Forest, so he turned to a few young wizards. Lauren also noticed something was wrong with this spider during the day. The acromantula with a danger level of 5. Snape poured the venom into another bottle and flicked his wand. Green light patterns lit up along the lines on the bottle. The mouth of the bottle turned into the shape of a mouth. He closed it tightly and his lips became pitch black. Tell me about the looking glass. How did you lie to your good friend Potter? Snape thought of Harry's indescribable smile. Lauren looked around, pretending it was a trivial matter, and said casually, I told him it was something his mother used to have, and that's what he did. Snape fell silent. Lily, it turns out to be Lily. Snape habitually wanted to laugh at Harry for being a fool, but then fell silent again. Lauren tentatively said, Professor, I heard that you and Harry's mother are classmates. Do you have any photos of her or anything like that? I feel a little guilty for lying to Harry like this. Not only was he feeling guilty, but if this continued, Lauren would have to slap himself in the face whenever Harry smiled. When I came out of the fantasy book in the middle of the night, I still couldn't sleep with my eyes open, thinking that I was really nothing. Snape ignored Lauren's words and started talking about today's potions. The lessons he taught Lauren privately were completely different from the potions class at Hogwarts. First, identify the medicines and materials clearly, understand the properties of different materials, and then deduce the effects of the medicine from the properties. Compared with potions textbooks, starting with some simple potions and understanding the functions of the materials is more traditional and the knowledge system is more obscure. Lauren thought that he owed someone a debt after all, so he studied hard and tried to start earning money to pay off his debt as soon as possible. Okay. As Lauren walked out of the office, Snape threw a pendant to him. Lauren looked back. Snape's back was turned to him, and his tall figure stood by the window, like a dead tree with only its trunk left. The snow outside the window stopped, and a piece of cold white filled the air quietly through the glass. In an ordinary boys' dormitory in Gryffindor, Harry was lying on the bed, one hand reaching straight towards the ceiling, holding an open pendant with a picture of a little girl inside. The little girl seemed a little surprised that someone was taking a picture of her. After the surprise, she smiled gently. There is a line of small words in the lower right corner of the photo. Lily Evans, Lily Evans. Harry muttered silently, filled with joy. Unlike the reflection in the mirror of Ariste, this time he didn't have to worry about not being able to see it at any time. When Harry looked at the image in the mirror, he felt more sad. The longing for his parents and the grievances he had suffered for so many years were all in his heart, and he wanted to tell his parents. Those sorrows and grievances gradually dissipated after Dumbledore took away the magic mirror. Now when I see my mother's photo, I feel more at ease and happy. Lauren looked at Harry's silly smile and felt that he was enriched and sublimated, and could sleep tonight. Are you asleep? Ron's voice sounded a little sad. Sleeping. Lauren responded quickly. Sleep. Simo said quickly. Me too. Neville followed. Hey hey hey. This was Harry's voice. When I met the Acromantula today, I felt very useless. Ron continued after making sure that several people were listening. Facing the Acromantula today, Lauren and the three of them all made quick moves, but Ron was the only one who was stunned. He has been thinking about this since he came back, like a big stone weighing on his heart. His magic has become more powerful, but he is still the same as before. Oh. Lauren responded quickly. I haven't seen the Acromantula yet. Seamus was annoyed. Every time he was away, his roommate would do something big, but he missed it every time. So will you still point fingers at us in the future? Neville was more concerned about this. Every time Ron guided him, Neville would feel embarrassed. Ron felt even more guilty after hearing this. I'll try my best. Hey hey hey. Harry, that's enough. The other four people shouted in unison. I think you are about to begin interpreting the Book of Abraham. Flamel looked at Lauren with gentle eyes, with expectations that he could not express. Lauren was still a little confused. When? I haven't finished learning the languages of several ancient civilizations. How can I interpret them? Timing is the key, words are not important. Flamel floated in the air, speaking slowly. Lauren nodded. Very good, the unique skill of the elderly. The Riddler started again. He wanted to pull Flamel's hair and ask, what does it mean when interpreting a book? Words are not important. Why are you forcing me to learn so many things that look like glyphs? Okay, just say it is, I won't take the blame if you can't figure it out anyway. Life is not easy, Lauren sighed. Whether it is alchemy or the magic stone, these are too far away from Lauren, and interpreting the Book of Abraham does not mean much to him. He even wanted to know how to redeem a desperate soul, so as to obtain the mysterious qualifications mentioned by Flamel, and use Nico's magic stone to try to cure Grandpa Bates. Before that, I need you to memorize this passage. Flamel waved his sleeves, and the lights of various colors in the sky merged into a text, about 13 lines long. The light patterns floated in the air. They were not Latin characters, Hebrew characters, or ancient Oriental characters. They were not any characters known to Lauren. But the moment Lauren saw this text, he knew the pronunciation of each character and the meaning of each word. There is no doubt that this is not a boring lie, but the most conclusive truth. Up is down is up, this is the only, unique miracle. One is the origin of all things. Everything in the world is born from this one. The sun is the father, the moon is the mother, the wind is the womb, and the earth is responsible for feeding and caring. He is the most perfect father of all things in the world, he has the most complete and powerful energy. To separate the earth from the fire, to separate the fine from the rough. He can fly from the earth to the sky, fall from the sky to the ground, and absorb all the energy from above and below. In this way, the whole person can gain the most dazzling glory in the world and dispel all the haze and darkness. His power is above all else. He is more delicate and beautiful than anything. He can penetrate everything in the world, even the most solid things. The world is born. It is this process that produces admirable miracles. The reason why I am called the Triple Great is because I possess the three qualities of philosophy. The question about how the sun works ends here. Lauren muttered these words, and the light in the sky dissipated. Just let me read it once. Lauren was furious. How could he memorize such a long paragraph in one go? Flamel was not annoyed at being yelled at, it's already in your heart. Lauren calmed down and recalled it, and the words just now seemed to be engraved in his mind, emerging clearly. What does this passage mean? What is the Triple Great? Lauren still has many questions and plans to ask them one by one. Triple Greatness describes a four-letter name. This name Lauren cannot be referred to in any other language. When transliterated, it sounds like Hermes. It sounded like the name of a Greek god, but when Lauren chanted this name, he had a clear feeling in his heart, which pointed to a supreme being, not a Greek god. This passage seems to answer the question of the operation of the sun, but the reference is very vague. Up is down is up sounds like a philosophical concept, but I can't figure out what it means. The only one for the birth of all things is a concept found in many myths. Whether it is the creation god in the west or Pangu in the east, they all have the meaning of one. The article mentions earth, fire, water, and wind, which is an ancient philosophical thought that believes that the world is composed of four elements. Some alchemical theories are also based on the cognition of four elements. The subsequent mention seems to be the process of a certain god absorbing energy and creating the world, but the sky and the earth were before the creation, which is inconsistent with most myths. The whole paragraph is filled with this kind of specious content, which is impossible to interpret. Flamel did not give an answer. This is the content of the Jade Record. You must know this sentence to interpret the Book of Abraham. The Jade Record is the content of a jade tablet in the Egyptian pyramid. The jade slate has been lost in the long river of history. There are still various versions of the Jade Record circulating, and it is difficult to know whether it is true or false. But I can't give you any explanation. As we agreed before, you can only explore the contents of the book alone. Only you can know the content you explore. You cannot tell anyone. The content itself is a curse. Lauren looked at Flamel and asked, "Can't even you tell me? Including me?" Flamel nodded. "Okay, it doesn't matter if you can't understand the text. Only I know what to interpret." No wonder only Nico has refined things in history. Lauren thought it was outrageous that this thing could reach his hands. Then when should I start? Lauren noticed that the timing of that sentence was very important. Flamel looked at him and said gently, "When Mars is bright." Lauren pursed his lips, fearing that he would curse if he couldn't control himself. You riddlers can tell you a specific time when you will die. No matter how many times a comet passed by the Earth, a full moon night, a solar or lunar eclipse, etc., the pointer should be clear. What the hell happens when Mars is bright? Every Wednesday, they have stargazing classes. Several times a month, I feel that Mars is very bright. What is the standard for brightness? Lauren was typing the keyboard in his mind, but Flamel just looked at him quietly. Lauren knew that asking further questions would lead to nothing. Okay, I don't know when I started, I can't interpret it clearly, it doesn't matter what I interpret. There is no pressure on Lauren, just leave it like that, the Book of Abraham will probably be passed on here. On Saturday morning, the snow seemed a little heavier than yesterday. It floated down softly, covering the castle and the woods with a white coat. When Lauren woke up, everyone else in the dormitory was still dreaming. The smile dropped from Harry's face and the pendant fell to the pillow. Gently getting out of bed, Lauren took out the Book of Abraham from under the bed and sat by the window. The soft yellowed bark paper, some Iceman brass rings, and the imprints pressed on the paper, Lauren has not opened this book for a long time. Apart from Abraham's name on the title page, there is only one paragraph left that Lauren can only half guess, probably because except for priests and scribes, anyone else who reads this book will be cursed. Lauren couldn't even guess the content of the following text, and still couldn't understand anything. He focused on the pictures on the page. In the first picture, a snake swallows another snake on a simple walking stick. Now it seems that this cane should be a magic wand. Lauren looked at the album and started thinking. Could the mysterious wand be Dumbledore's Elder Wand? Something to do with snakes, maybe Slytherin's Snacky Wood Wand? Should he be asked to find this magic wand? Lauren thought very far. If interpreting the Book of Abraham required finding ancient things all over the world, then he would definitely give up. It would be very troublesome just thinking about it. There is a cross with a snake nailed on it. No matter how divergent my thinking is, I can't figure out what it is. Is the snake on it a basilisk? If it is a basilisk, I might have a chance to see it next year. In the third picture, there is a spring in the desert. Snakes flow out of the spring along the water. Doesn't this require him to go to the desert? Why are snakes mentioned? What does snake mean? I thought wildly in front of the book, but in the end there was no result. It seems that Mars is not bright enough. No matter, let nature take its course. Lauren sighed and looked out the window. It was completely white, and some snowflakes were piled on the platform outside the window. This is a good weather for making frozen pears, and the idea suddenly came to Lauren's mind. The thoughts came together and he could no longer suppress it. Lauren's mind was filled with the sweet juice of frozen pears, and his saliva secreted rapidly, almost covering his tongue. The jade record and the Book of Abraham were all forgotten. Just do it, today is Saturday, there is no class. Lauren ran out of the lounge in his pajamas, there was no one on the road. With a smile on his face, Lauren ran all the way to the Hufflepuff common room and quickly tickled the pear on the cartoon, making it giggle. The kitchen was brightly lit and filled with the sweet smell of flour and the aroma of stewed beans and broth. Lauren couldn't help but salivate when she smelled this. The house elves were busy preparing breakfast for the teachers and students of Hogwarts. It takes a lot of time to prepare breakfasts with different flavors in different regions, even with magic. A house elf is directing the croissant to hit the blade of the knife, cut itself in half, and then the two halves of bread jump into the plate and find a suitable position to lie down. When the elf saw Lauren in pajamas entering the kitchen, he stopped and clapped his hands to greet him. "Little wizard, what would you like to eat?" The house elf looked at Lauren. He has a thin body, slender limbs, and bat ears. Lauren was also looking at the elf in front of him. "I remember you. The avalanche strawberry cake I asked for last time was also made by you." "Oh. Yes." The elf exclaimed in surprise, "It is an honor for me to be remembered by the little wizard." Lauren was in a good mood now and had no ill feelings toward the elf. "Maybe you can tell me your name." "I'm Lauren, Lauren Morgan." "Name? You asked for my name." The elf raised his hands and cheered, "My name is Xiome, nice to meet you Mr. Morgan." "Wheat, I remember. I need some pears." Enthusiastic Wheat stuffed Lauren with a basket of pears, about a dozen of them, with yellow peels and some brown spots on them, and a smell unique to pears. Lauren didn't know what kind of pear it was, but it looked a bit like a Sydney pear. No matter what, wizards always have a way to eat pears from all seasons in winter. Lauren jumped back to the dormitory and placed a basket of pears one by one in the snowdrift outside the windowsill, full of anticipation. Chapter 67. After closing the window and clapping his hands, Lauren didn't know how long the pears should be frozen. It would be about a week if they were left outside to freeze. Whether it was immortality or jade record, Lauren had no idea. The frozen pears he would be able to eat in a week were even more worth looking forward to. The Great Hall, at the Gryffindor table. "Eat quickly." Simo looked excited, "The snow on the playground is already waiting for us." Hearing this, the little wizards around them speeded up their eating. It's the weekend, and the little wizards who have been waiting all week have already discussed how to play. There is a thick layer of snow on the playground, which is very suitable for snowball fights. Lauren was drinking mushroom soup. It was salty and rich, with a sweet aftertaste. He squinted his eyes in comfort. "Are you going to join them too?" Hermione asked Lauren cautiously. She looked like she hadn't slept well and had slight bags under her eyes. In the past, Hermione and Lauren would go to the room of requirement to spar on Saturdays, and their current record was probably over 100 to 22. Except for the time when Lauren was practicing the iron armor charm, Hermione had never been able to knock Lauren down again. The little witch held her breath in her heart, and she must show him a little bit of strength this week. The little witch was a little disappointed. If Lauren wanted to play, she could just go to the library and read. "Did you stay up late reading again last night?" Lauren glanced at Hermione's eyes and did not answer her question. I was thinking about not going to class today." Hermione replied weakly, and then realized why she had to look like she had done something wrong. She raised her head to be tougher, but was glanced at by Lauren and lowered her head again. "Let's practice in a different place today." Lauren exhaled the last bit of the bottom of the bowl into her stomach and let out a contented sigh. Change place? Where? Hermione was dragged to the playground by Lauren in a daze. In the stands, the lawn was covered with snow, and even the lines drawn on the ground were invisible. There are already many little wizards playing here, making snowmen, having snowball fights, laughter and screams lingering over the playground. The most eye-catching thing is the twins. One of them is sitting on the wooden board, and the other is running forward with a rope. Ah! The twins shouted happily, one pulling the other and running from one side of the playground to the other. Hermione's eyes followed the twins from one end to the other. Boom! A loose snowball hit Hermione on the back of the head. It didn't hurt, but it knocked Hermione unconscious. Hermione turned her head blankly and looked at Lauren. Today's practice. Lauren waved to Hermione and smiled happily. Hermione felt that this smile was dazzling. Lauren formed another snowball and shot a fadeaway shot, hitting Hermione right in the head. The scattered snow fell from Hermione's face, feeling ice cold. Boom! Another snowball. Lauren! Hermione screamed and rushed towards Lauren. Not just here, scattered battlefields in other places gradually spread. A big melee soon broke out on the playground, with snowballs flying everywhere. Everyone agreed not to use magic. You may be targeting someone 1 second, but the next second a snowball scatters on your face, and you have one more enemy. Except for Hermione, who had no one else in her eyes but stared at Lauren. This damn Lauren! Images kept popping up in Hermione's mind, from the chocolate frog on the train to the pile of cockroaches that night. She was determined to teach Lauren a lesson. Compared to Lauren, who grew up in the mountains, Hermione was not familiar with this kind of game. She would get smashed when making snowballs, and she would get smashed when looking for someone. When Hermione squeezed the snowball and threw it at Lauren, Lauren could always quickly get out of the way and hit Hermione in the face with her backhand. Ah! After several repetitions, Hermione couldn't stand it anymore. She gave up snowball and planned to take action directly. She rushed towards Lauren. Go to hell! Lauren was worried about being beaten, so he moved quickly to escape. The two of them chased each other and ran circles around the playground. When the Weasley twins saw this scene, they looked at each other and laughed. When Lauren passed the twins, Fred reached out and grabbed Lauren, hooked his hand on his shoulder, and said loudly, "Hi, Lauren, long time no see." Before Lauren could respond, George said, "Oh, Fred, we're going to be late. Goodbye, Lauren." The two said in unison, pulling their simple sled away quickly. The acting skills of these two are so bad that anyone can see that they are trying to hold Lauren back. Lauren looked at Hermione, who was approaching quickly, raised his hands, "Truce, truce. There is offside interference." Hermione heard nothing and ran all the way, flying towards Lauren, knocking him to the ground and suppressing his hand. Hermione was panting, her face flushed from the exertion. "You promise? You won't tease me again? When have I ever teased you? How can you guarantee if you haven't done it?" Lauren was still stubborn. Lauren could feel Hermione's breath, which was warm, and he tilted his head uncomfortably. Bang! When he tilted his head, a snowball flew from nowhere and hit Lauren in the face. Bah! Some snow fell into Lauren's mouth. His face and body were covered with snow, and he looked extremely embarrassed. Hermione looked at Lauren and burst into laughter. Lauren was a little annoyed. "Why are you laughing?" Hermione laughed even louder when she heard this and couldn't control it. She gradually let go of her hand that was holding Lauren down and fell next to Lauren, clutching her stomach and still giggling. Hermione didn't know why it was so funny, but she couldn't help it when she saw Lauren's look. Laughter is contagious, so Lauren couldn't help it and said with a smile, "What about you, why are you laughing?" There was still snow in the sky and it was cold, but their faces and hearts were warm. Gryffindor common room, in front of the fireplace. Several little wizards were sitting in front of the fireplace, wrapped in blankets. They played wildly in the morning, and they didn't come back until their clothes were soaked and it was too cold. The fire in the fireplace was burning brightly, and the wood made crackling sounds from time to time. The red color reflected on their faces, their eyes were bright and their faces were hot. "Are you going home during the Christmas vacation or staying at school?" Ron looked at the others and talked about his parents' temporary decision to visit his brother Charlie, who was raising a fire dragon in Romania. Starting from the second week of December, this Monday, the deans of each college began to collect the list of students who will go home. Today is already Saturday, and everyone's choices should be finalized. Bookings for places on the Hogwarts Express start next week. Seamus and Neville were both going home for the holidays, and Hermione also said she was going home because she missed her parents very much. Harry was very happy. He should spend Christmas with his godfather. Hagrid had said that Sirius would give him a surprise. Lauren received a letter from Grandpa Bates last week. The letter said that Grandpa Bates was still traveling around his hometown, and Lauren had to stay at school for Christmas. "And you are my real friend." Ron looked at Lauren affectionately. Lauren took a sip of the hot coffee in the cup and said, "Stop it, I don't want to play wizard chess with you at all. Ron is the best at wizard chess among them. Even the smart Hermione can't compare with him. Whenever he gets a chance, Ron will drag a few people to play wizard chess. Everyone is tired of this." Ron's face suddenly became depressed, and everyone laughed happily. Chapter 68. Room of Requirement. Tong Tong Petrochemical. Hermione threw out a binding spell, quickly left the spot, ran forward a few steps, raised her hand and cast another binding spell. Armor Protection. Lauren raised his wand, and the white light of the first binding spell returned the same way and hit the open space. Then he moved a few steps to the side to avoid the second binding spell. The two of them walked back and forth like this, going around in the dual classroom built by the Room of Requirement. Mainly Hermione was attacking, while Lauren was constantly defending and dodging. Lauren retreated early to avoid a curse that Hermione was charging. At the moment when the curse was released, he caught Hermione's attack gap and cast a binding spell to disable her combat effectiveness. If any professor saw the duel just now, they would express sincere admiration. The level shown by the two just now is already better than that of many senior students. Lauren took a breath. Hermione's attack rhythm was too fast. If he only defended, it would be difficult for him to parry. Under the guidance of Flamel, Lauren made rapid progress in dueling. Hermione doesn't show much talent in combat, but she can always put her knowledge to use, rarely makes the same mistakes, and progresses equally quickly. Lauren walked up to Hermione and lifted the curse on the girl. "You were too aggressive just now. You only focused on offense and no regard for defense. Once I grasped the rhythm of the attack, the outcome was no longer in suspense." He stretched out his hand to help Hermione up. Hermione stood up and shook her hair. "You haven't fought back, so I gradually let down my guard and just focused on attacking." Hermione was a little helpless, as if she was further away from her goal of bringing down Lauren. She could notice that Lauren became more relaxed and natural in the battle. "No, if this continues, 22 will always be 22. Hermione was plotting to show him how powerful she was by some other means. Next time. The two of them talked all the way out of the Room of Requirement and headed to the restaurant. Christmas vacation is about to start in 1 week, and the castle has begun to be decorated one after another in preparation for the Christmas dinner. When Lauren and Hermione passed by the corridor, Percy was hanging a ribbon on a stool. Prefects always had more work. In fact, there is an easier way for wizards to hang ribbons, but it cannot be done in the corridor. The school rules clearly prohibit casting spells in the corridor, so Percy had to hang up the ribbons on a stool. At this moment, Peeves suddenly emerged from the wall on the other side of the ribbon. Percy pulled one end, and Peeves quickly pulled the other end of the ribbon and turned it around Percy several times. The ribbon was tightly wrapped around Percy's neck. His eyes bulged outwards, the trachea on his neck protruded, and he made a coughing sound in his throat. His body was swaying and about to fall off the stool at any time. He looked like he was about to be strangled. "Tremble at the feet of the great Peeves." Peeves screamed with satisfaction when he saw Percy's miserable state. "Put down the ribbon and gradually fly away." After Peeves left, Percy's expression suddenly returned to normal. After standing firm, he took off the ribbon from his neck expressionlessly and continued to play with the Christmas decorations. It seemed that the episode just now did not affect him at all. Lauren clicked his tongue. He seems to be very skilled already. He must have been teased by Peeves many times. Hermione nodded. The two of them suddenly felt a little sorry for Percy and the other prefects. December 20th, Friday, after potions class. Snape didn't deduct any points today. He hasn't deducted any points from us for 2 weeks. Harry couldn't believe it. Snape probably did it because he was celebrating a holiday, so he didn't deduct any points today. Ron laughed. Snape must have been eaten by Lua, and now this Snape was conjured by Dumbledore's magic. Then you two don't have to do your potions Christmas homework. Lauren was also laughing, and he was looking forward to the results of the two of them not doing Snape's homework. Ron remembered the last time he took snake venom and shook his head in fear. I never risked my life. During your holidays, remember to keep an eye on Lua. If someone really wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone, the Christmas holidays will definitely be a good opportunity to do so. Hermione reminded a few people. Ron nodded. Harry and Hermione were going home for Christmas. Lauren was deceived by Snape. Leave the responsibility of guarding the Philosopher's Stone to me. Before dinner, Lauren went back to the dormitory to dig out his frozen pears from the snowdrift because Hermione and the others would be on the train home tomorrow. When they were dug out, the skin of the pears had oxidized and turned black, with a layer of white frost hanging on them. They were frozen hard, and the two pears made a crisp sound when they touched together. It's Christmas on the 25th, but we always have to leave some time on the road for the little wizards who go home. After the classes on Friday, we have a holiday. Lauren initially thought that the Christmas holiday would last only a few days, or at most a week, but later he learned that the Christmas holiday at Hogwarts extends from Christmas to February. What kind of holiday is this? This is the winter holiday. Moreover, Hogwarts only counts one semester a year, and there is only one final exam. It will be next year, so you can have fun at Christmas. Lauren was silent and crying. What kind of advanced system is this? Lauren found a basin to put the pears in and placed them in the lounge. He held a copy of Wizard Weekly and sat by the fireplace to entertain himself, waiting for the delicious food in his memory to emerge from the ice cubes. Lauren didn't go close to the fireplace to speed up the defrosting. Lauren was worried that the flavor would be affected by baking it. Not long after, a layer of ice formed on the surface of the pear, which slowly melted away. If you touch it lightly with your fingers, you can feel the black skin becoming pliable. During dinner, Lauren brought a basin of black pears to the table. What is this? Seamus came closer. He was always curious about things. Delicacies from faraway countries. Lauren said in a mysterious tone. Looks like a pear. Why is the skin black? Harry and Ron came over to look. Malfoy also turned his head and looked here when he heard this. He had never seen black pears before. There were only about 10 in total, and they were divided among a few close friends, and one was given to each of the twins. We still have a share. The twins said in unison, with exaggerated emotion in their tone. I'm sorry Hermione, even though you are the Gryffindor scorer. But next time we have to help Lauren. Hermione couldn't laugh or cry when she heard this. When did you help me? The last time I stopped Lauren during the snowball fight, wasn't it because I wanted to have fun? Lauren demonstrated how to eat frozen pears, removing the pear handles and tearing open the soft black peel, revealing the snow-white flesh containing pear juice. A sweet aroma of pear and cold water vapor emerged from the flesh. Very tempting. Lauren slurped hard at the torn place, sucked in all the pear juice and pear flesh that melted in his mouth, and closed his eyes in enjoyment. Although it was different from the taste in his memory, it was very close. Others seemed to be able to feel the delicious taste of frozen pears just by looking at Lauren. They followed suit and ate frozen pears for the first time, and the sound of squeaking echoed on the long Gryffindor table. The pulp is soft and smooth, the juice is rich and sweet, and it is ice cold. This is an experience they have never had before. Ron took a taste, his eyes widened, and he hurriedly speeded up his talking. He planned to finish this one as quickly as possible. There were 3 left at Lauren's place, and he could still eat one more. Malfoy looked at it and sneered, "Hey, country bumpkin Weasley." Ron glared at each other, and the two were about to have a conflict. Lauren stepped in between the two of them, put a pear on a plate and placed it in front of Malfoy. Merry Christmas. Lauren felt that Christmas here was just like the Chinese New Year. After all, it was just for good luck. Malfoy was stunned for a moment. He had never dealt with the Gryffindor people, and he had never spoken to Lauren. He thought he would quarrel with them again this time, but Lauren's kindness made him a little overwhelmed. Chapter 69. Don't think that a pear can please me. Malfoy stretched out his hand to take the frozen pear, feeling flustered and caught off guard, and spoke with a bit of sternness. If Lauren was like Ron and fought with him to the end, he would have many vicious words to use to attack Lauren. Mudblood, country bumpkin, any sentence can make these people jump in anger. Malfoy will proudly watch others become angry, which gives him a sense of accomplishment. On the contrary, now, Malfoy felt as if his swear words were blocked by something. Malfoy buried his head, not daring to look at the Gryffindor people. He was a little annoyed and couldn't be angry with Lauren. The pears taste pretty good. I'll ask Dobby to make hundreds of them when I get back, and bring the unfinished ones to school so that Lauren can see the wealth of the Malfoy family. Let them go this time, Malfoy thought as he ate the pear. It's a waste of money to give it to Malfoy. Ron was still a little angry. Eat your pears. Lauren didn't pay much attention, he was just a kid looking for a sense of presence. Malfoy is not a good person, nor is he completely bad. He holds on to the concepts instilled by his parents, but cannot fully accept them. He will suffer in the future. Hermione took small bites of the pear, which was very sweet. She didn't like Malfoy, and she found quarreling boring. Lauren resolved the conflict in this way, and she felt that Lauren was different from other people. At the guest of honor seat, Dumbledore looked at the scene on the dining table with a gentle smile. Lauren gave him more surprises than he expected. I just don't know what black pears taste like, and even as an old man, I want to try them. After dinner, the Gryffindor common room became lively. There is a holiday tomorrow, and the place is crowded with excited little wizards. They don't plan to go to bed so early, and some people don't even plan to sleep tonight. The students who stayed in school were excited because they were not in class, and the students who returned home were happy because they were about to see their long-lost relatives. Harry and Ron were sitting around a table, surrounded by many little wizards. The Weasley twins are demonstrating how to play cracker cards, a card game played by up to 5 people. The cards are special magical items that may explode at any time during the play. Seamus was interested in this card game, in fact, he had heard of it before. But his mother warned him that if he dared to play at home, she would stuff explosive cards into his nostrils until they exploded. Everyone thinks that Simo's mother did the right thing for the safety of their family. Lauren and Neville stood in front of the window, discussing how black pears froze. Lauren felt that the frozen pears this time were not that interesting. Although the taste was good, it was far from the taste in his memory. Perhaps because of lack of time, Lauren planned to freeze another batch during the holidays. Neville liked the taste and texture of frozen pears very much. He was always very patient in handling herbs and food. Neville was going home for Christmas vacation, and he planned to make some at home to try and give it to his grandma. His grandma was already very old, and this kind of soft food was just right. Perhaps we should freeze, then thaw, repeat this several times. Lauren reached out to open the window and took out the only frozen pear left in the snowdrift. This pear was specially set aside by Lauren and has not yet thawed. Can this be done with other fruits? I don't know, you can try some frozen peaches, apples, etc. Maybe they'll taste better. Lauren put the pears into a paper bag and climbed out of the lounge with the bag in hand. Go down the stairs, down to the basement, and walk along the spooky corridor. Even though other places are decorated with Christmas decorations, this place is still spooky. I don't know if the old bat eats frozen pears. Lauren is not sure. Thinking about the way Snape slurped the pear juice, Lauren laughed. It was Snape who opened the door to Lauren himself. Lauren noticed a letter on the seat. Snape might be reading the letter or replying to some letter. Frozen pears, a food from the East. Lauren walked in and put the paper bag on the table naturally. The pears have thawed a bit, and some water has soaked out of the paper bag, leaving marks on the table. Snape looked at the watermark and frowned. You don't have to flatter me, Lauren. Just concentrate on refining the potion and repay your debt. Lauren ignored Snape's words. Snape didn't know when he changed his tune and stopped calling him Mr. Morgan for a long time. This old bat was very arrogant. Are there still classes today? Lauren didn't answer his words. He was anxious to go back to the lounge to learn how to play Crackle and Explosion cards. No, there's no need to come over during the holidays. Then I wish you a Merry Christmas, Professor, and goodbye. Lauren said goodbye to Snape. He was anxious to see if Seamus had blown up the lounge. Snapped. Lauren politely closed the door behind her when she left. Snape stared at the door for a long time, feeling that Lauren was becoming more and more arrogant in front of him. After the holiday was over, he should be taught how to behave. He returned to his seat and continued to write, his eyes drifting unconsciously to the frozen pears in the paper bag. Snape stared at the water stains on the paper bag for a while, then put the letter away. He couldn't write any more. This thing looked really annoying. He waved towards the cabinet next to him, and the cabinet door opened on its own, and a set of tableware flew out, falling to the table and placing itself neatly. 5 minutes later, Snape took out his handkerchief and wiped his mouth. Oh, this frozen pear tastes like this. When Lauren returned to the lounge, Seamus had already acquired the explosive card. Around him sat Harry, Ron, and Dean, and up to 5 people could play explosive cards together. There was a circle of little wizards outside watching the fun. Lee Jordan was passionately explaining the situation. Currently, Seamus' score is far ahead. I dare say that Seamus is unique in his ability to explode. Harry quickly threw out a card, fearing it would explode in his hand. Harry played his cards. Can he score? No. Harry's luck is not good. Lee Jordan was very sorry. Harry felt that he was very lucky. Compared with his score, he hoped that he would not be bombed. The other 3 are always scared when they play their cards, worried that their cards will explode. Simo is different. When Simo plays a card, it will definitely explode. His hand has been numbed by the explosion, but he still plays the card tremblingly. Congratulations to Seamus, as the winner, he can stay on the table and continue the next game. Lee Jordan was very excited. No, I don't want to play. Simo struggled to escape. The twins each held Seamus' shoulders tightly and said, "You want to run away after winning? There is no such rule." Ha 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 ha. The little wizards who were watching laughed happily. Lauren looked at it for a while and decided not to participate. He estimated that Seamus wouldn't be able to leave the field today if his hands were blown into pig's trotters. It's so tragic. Chapter 70. Lauren didn't know when the show ended last night, but he heard the crackling explosion outside when he fell asleep. In the morning, in an ordinary Gryffindor dormitory. Woo! Seamus's whimpers attracted the others who were already awake and still lying under the quilt. What's wrong? Ron was very excited. He couldn't calm down since the beginning of the holiday. Others also poked their heads in and looked at Simo curiously. Wo's hands are really like pig's trotters. Simo still whimpered and stretched out his hand from the quilt. The flesh on the right hand was inflated like a balloon, the palm was red and swollen, and could not stop shaking, looking very happy. I can't exert any strength at all. I can't close it or open it. Simo's fingers moved slightly, and the amplitude was almost indiscernible. Ha 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 ha. Ron was the first to say happily without caring about feelings at all. This is not a big problem for the wizard, it can be dealt with briefly by Madame Pomfrey later. You are still laughing, I can't even wear my clothes anymore. Simo's voice was very aggrieved. Being teased like this, Lauren and the others woke up completely laughing. Several people dressed up slowly, looking at Simo's funny look, holding back their laughter and helping Simo get dressed together. After struggling for a long time, the coat still couldn't be put on, so it could only be put on Simo's shoulders. Lauren looked at the red and swollen pig's trotters and couldn't help but poke them a few times. It hurts, it hurts. Simo immediately retracted his hand and blocked Lauren with half of his body. Ron found it interesting and poked it a few more times from the other side. Seamus quickly changed direction to block Ron, and then was poked by Lauren again. After repeating it several times, Simo gave up. He lay on the bed dejectedly and stopped struggling. With tears in his eyes, he said in a very aggrieved tone, "It's up to you. I'm tired." "How long did you play last night?" Lauren asked. Speaking of this, Seamus restrained his depression and became proud. "I, Seamus Finnegan, beat all Gryffindors." Harry exposed him. "Someone cried last night and said he didn't want to play anymore. I won't say who it was." Ron laughed again. He was there. Several people helped Seamus to the auditorium for breakfast, with laughter all the way. Occasionally they met other Gryffindor students, and everyone laughed wildly when they saw Seamus' hands. Simo's face turned red and he kept talking about the winner taking it all. "You guys are jealous." More laughter. On the Gryffindor table. Seamus put his elbows on the dining table, and clenched his right hand into a fist to barely hold the fork. He tremblingly inserted a piece of jam bread into his mouth, but he couldn't lift it up until it was still 2 fists away from his mouth. The bread kept dangling in front of him, but he couldn't put it in his mouth. The twin brothers were sitting next to him. They were the ones who kept Seamus playing explosive cards last night. "Are you going to shake off the jam? Is there some jam-free bread here that you need?" The Weasley twins each said something to each other, teasing Seamus. Ha 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 ha. Lauren and the others looked on. Snort. Simo became hardened, arched his waist and stretched his neck forward, raised his chin, opened his mouth and swallowed the bread in one gulp. "How can this be difficult for me, Simo? There was another burst of cheerful laughter. After breakfast, several people accompanied Seamus to the school infirmary to receive a lesson from Madame Pomfrey. It was already close to noon when they returned. In the lounge, Hermione sat next to a large suitcase, reading a book to pass the time. Seamus saw the big black box at a glance and exclaimed, "Oops! I haven't packed my luggage yet and the train is about to leave." Students who want to go home usually pack their bags in the morning. The Hogwarts Express leaves around 11 o'clock, so they have plenty of time. It's just that Seamus played cards all night last night and spent the whole morning in the school doctor's office without cleaning up anything. Seamus rushed into the bedroom and got busy. At least his hands were fine and he packed things neatly. Harry didn't have to pack anything, Sirius would pick him up directly at the school gate without any rush. People came in and out of the lounge, and Ron took Harry to the Great Hall to play wizard chess. No one would play wizard chess with him in the next month. "Do you have any plans for the holidays?" Lauren sat next to Hermione. He could smell the muggle shampoo on the little witch's hair. "I don't know yet. I might go skiing with my parents." Hermione was a little depressed. She would be able to see her parents soon, but she didn't know where this depression came from. Unable to think of an answer, Hermione attributed this to the fact that she was leaving Hogwarts, and she might be a little reluctant. Hermione couldn't read the book, so she simply closed it and said, "Remember to write to me." The girl got angry when she mentioned this. Before the school started, the two of them went shopping together in Diagon Alley and agreed to write letters to exchange magic. However, until the school started, not to mention the letters, they didn't even see the owl's feathers. After returning home from Diagon Alley, Hermione vowed to show off to her parents that she and her classmates would use owl letters to communicate, just like when they received the acceptance letter. For more than a month, when Hermione got up every morning, she would immediately check the window to see if there was an owl delivering a message. From time to time, she would also ask her mother if she had seen an owl. Thinking of her silly appearance, her mother must be laughing secretly behind her back. On the train, this man actually lied to others and said that the owl delivered the message and needed training. It was so disgusting. What was even more disgusting was that he actually fooled me. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Hermione reached out and tapped Lauren. Lauren didn't know that the anger in the little witch's heart spanned from a few months ago to now. He turned his head in confusion. "Just write a letter." "Why are you hitting me? If you dare to lie to me again, you will be dead," Hermione said bitterly. The little girl's voice was crisp and not intimidating at all. "You might as well take Hanan back and write me a letter. I will definitely not forget to write you a reply." Lauren was lazy. He could even forget to write a letter to Grandpa Bates. He really didn't dare to make any guarantees. That's it. There was a melodious bell ringing outside the window, and the train was about to leave. Hermione stood up, put on her scarf, put on her gloves and got ready to go. Lauren pulled Hermione's suitcase and planned to take her to the castle gate. The corridors were hung with ribbons of various colors, extending all the way to the auditorium. The walls are covered with unknown white flowers, and there are 12 Christmas trees that Hagrid moved in. There are small shiny icicles hanging on the trees, and magic candles float among the branches and leaves, sprinkled from scattered air strikes. A little bit of light. Professor Flitwick was using a levitating charm to hang star ornaments on a tree. On the long table, Harry was playing chess with Ron, and was killed and defeated. He didn't want to suffer this kind of torture, he wanted to escape, but seeing Ron's happy look, he had no choice but to endure the torture. Lauren and Hermione came over, just in time to see Ron's queen swinging a chair and beating Harry's knight, who kept wailing. It was so miserable that Hermione couldn't bear to watch it anymore. She told Ron, "You must pay attention to Lu Wei's situation. If you have any problems, you should go to the professor immediately. Don't worry, leave the important responsibility of guarding the magic stone to me." Ron looked at the chessboard without raising his head. "General. This didn't look very reliable." Hermione shook her head and pulled Lauren towards the door. Hermione placed another hope on Lauren. "I know you think Professor Snape is a good person, but no matter who it is, you must keep an eye on the Philosopher's Stone." "I know." Lauren sighed. "You really are overthinking. Harry is not in the castle, Dumbledore's teaching cannot be carried out, and Voldemort has no chance to see the Sorcerer's Stone. Enjoy your Christmas vacation in peace." All the way to the door, Hermione's low mood rose again. The wind carried fine snow drifting in from outside the door, and Hermione raised her head and looked at Lauren. Chapter 71. The wind and snow are trying to squeeze into the castle with the cold air, and the warm current in the castle is pushing the cold air out. The silvery white snow meets the grey and black stone wall gate here. Because of the holiday, Lauren was lazy. He was obviously dragging the box, but instead he was leaning on the box. The eyelids were pulled up, hiding the sapphire-like eyes. Hermione looked at him, his eyes brighter and bluer than when they first met. This is the first wizard friend I have met, in Diagon Alley, on the Hogwarts Express, in the sorting ceremony, in the transfiguration class. Lauren is by his side in all the scenes, and his pranks are both hilarious and always relaxing. Boring flying lessons become fun when he's around. The corridors of the school seem to have become very short. Walking from the room of requirement back to the Gryffindor common room seemed like there was never enough walking distance. It's been more than a month since the Christmas break, and just like she doesn't want to leave Hogwarts, Hermione suddenly feels that she also feels a little bit reluctant to leave Lauren. I will take Hanan away when we pass by the Olori later. Hermione looked at the boy in front of her steadily. I know. I'll reply. Lauren dragged the box back and forth, and the wheels made a gurgling sound on the ground, as if it was some interesting game. Snowflakes fell from the sky, painting the snow-covered earth with a stroke of white. The carriage in the distance was blocked by trees, and only a faint red could be seen. The steam from the boiler at the front of the carriage floated up into the clouds. Give back a touch of white to the sky. Lauren was not used to such a scene, and the atmosphere was strange. The girl looked up at Lauren, her eyes were bright and her eyelashes were flickering, as if she mustered up the courage to do something, and she opened her hands towards Lauren. But the courage could only last so far, and the shyness in her heart took over again. Hermione's cheeks quickly turned crimson, and she no longer dared to look at Lauren. She controlled her hands and stretched towards the suitcase, pretending that what she just did was just to take the suitcase. At this moment, Lauren hugged the girl into his arms, patted her on the back, and said, "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas." Hermione was sulking. She felt that Lauren's body temperature was a little hot, and her heartbeat was scalding fast. She told herself that this was a simple farewell hug, this was a simple farewell hug. The girl quickly grabbed the suitcase handle and walked outside without looking back. Lauren looked at Hermione's hurried steps and was a little confused. There was still a while before the train started. Why were you in such a hurry? Unable to figure it out, Lauren put the problem behind him and planned to go to the kitchen to get another basket of pears to freeze. As Lauren walked to the kitchen, she looked at the corridor outside the Hufflepuff lounge. The walls and ceilings were covered with various decorations. Lauren also saw some pictures of the Muggle world. Compared to students from other houses, the little badgers are more enthusiastic about decorating the Christmas hallway. From a distance, I saw a little girl with twin tails holding a fruit basket in one hand and jumping out of the kitchen, humming a pleasant melody. Hello. Lauren. Hannah Abbott looked very happy, and the final sound of each word rose. Hello Hannah, are you staying at school for Christmas too? Yeah, I don't want to spend Christmas in a pub again this year. Hannah's mother always took her to spend Christmas at the Leaky Cauldron, where Tom, the owner, held a Christmas party every year, and although the food was delicious and she'd always wanted to try butterbeer, this year she wanted to do it at the Hog. What's for Christmas? Lauren looked at the basket in her hand, which contained various fruits, the most common of which were pears. Since yesterday, several Hufflepuff students have asked him about how to make frozen pears. These people always have the most sincere and noble enthusiasm for life. Oh, I want to try other fruit jelly to see how it tastes. Hannah noticed Lauren's gaze and explained cheerfully. Neville also has this idea, but he has gone home. Maybe you can write letters to communicate. No one knew what Lauren was secretly thinking. This was Neville's future wife. Lauren wanted to see how the boring boy Neville would react if they met in advance. He was looking forward to it just thinking about it. Really? I'll remember it, and I'll freeze some delicious fruit to share with you. Hannah jumped away. After saying goodbye to Hannah, Lauren wiggled his fingers and scratched the pear on the cartoon, and entered the kitchen listening to the pears giggle. In addition to preparing today's lunch and dinner as usual, the house elves in the kitchen are also making some preparations for the Christmas dinner. You can't imagine this scene. 100 slaughtered turkeys are bathing each other in a huge wooden barrel. Their bath water is various marinated sauces, and the turkeys smear the sauce on their bodies. Every part of the oven is used to ensure that the baked product is delicious. Wheat and several other house elves whose names were unknown stood nearby, wagging their fingers to direct them. It looked a bit like a concert, and the elves were the conductors. Lauren found wheat and asked for some more pears. Of course. It's Mai's honor. Mai's brows were raised high, and he seemed very happy that Lauren liked the pears from last time. Lauren couldn't stand hearing such a flattering tone, and he got goosebumps all over his body. Wheat quickly brought Lauren a basket full of pears. The pears were crowded together, filling the entire basket, and the outside ones looked like they would be squeezed out of the basket at any time. Lauren held the fruit basket carefully, fearing that the pears would fall out of it, so he took out a box of chocolate frogs from his pocket. It's not a valuable thing, just think of it as a Christmas gift for you. It's like seeing a child, a water delivery worker, or a delivery person during the holidays, and giving them a tip or a good review. It's just for good luck. Xiaomei looked at the candy blankly, with tears in his eyes, and murmured, Christmas gift, Mr. Morgan gave Xiaomei a Christmas gift. Oh my god, Wheat has a Christmas present. The elf screamed. The house elf ran around the kitchen like crazy holding a chocolate frog, shouting words that made no sense. There were exclamations among the other elves, as if this was something big. Lauren was wondering whether to run away now. He knew that house elves might have psychological problems before, but he didn't expect the psychological problems to be so big. Wheat ran a few laps and returned to Lauren, looking straight at him. Kind, great Mr. Morgan, Wheat will always be loyal to you. Even if you graduate from Hogwarts, Mai will always be your servant as long as you are willing. Hiss, Lauren took a breath, what the hell, just a piece of candy to defraud a free laborer, Dumbledore, a capitalist, must have such a black heart. But he didn't have this idea. No one in modern society could accept this kind of thing. He felt uncomfortable when he came into contact with the elf twice. If he accepted it, he would probably get goosebumps in the future. He quickly explained, No, it's not something valuable. Mai stared at Lauren stubbornly, this is Mai's promise. In Mai's eyes, there is nothing more precious than this in the world. This guy is stubborn. Seeing that Lauren couldn't persuade him, he couldn't afford to offend him, so he ran away with the pears. Next time you go to the kitchen to get food, you should ask other elves. No, next time just ask other little wizards to help you get food. Chapter 72. Just as Lauren was placing pears outside the window, Ron lowered his head and came back with the chessboard and 2 chess pieces. Well. Ron sighed loudly, trying to attract Lauren's attention. He turned his head forward and glanced sideways, quietly gauging Lauren's reaction. Lauren ignored him. He was thinking about how to improve the frozen pear. There were a total of 18 pears in the basket this time. Lauren divided them into 3 groups of 6 pieces each. One group was frozen like this, regardless of him. The other 2 groups were frozen and thawed once a day. After thawing, they were put away. Go back and freeze again, eating one every time it thaws. Oh. Ron tried again, this time his sigh was longer and louder. Is Harry gone? Lauren was afraid that if he kept sighing and his lung capacity would be insufficient, he would pass away. While talking, he made grid lines with snow on the platform outside the window to divide the areas. Seeing that Lauren finally noticed him, Ron hurriedly said, Yes, he ran very fast and can't wait to spend Christmas with his godfather. If you ask me, there is nothing wrong with spending Christmas at school. Is there a possibility, and I mean possibility, that he really doesn't want to play chess with you anymore? Lauren closed the window, walked to the soft cloth chair in front of the fireplace and sat down, wiped his hands wet with snow with a handkerchief, and stretched out his hands to warm the fire. His hands were now cold. What's wrong with wizard chess? It increases intelligence. Many great wizards loved playing wizard chess when they were children. Ron muttered. No childhood is complete without wizard's chess. I can guarantee that your army will not be defeated in the first 50 steps. Let's have one game, just one game. Ron was so bored that the twin brothers ran off to nowhere. Lauren's hands warmed up, he rubbed them from side to side, and looked at Ron helplessly, let's play a different kind of chess. I can do it, you say. Ron changed his helpless look and cheered up. Lauren took out his wand and pointed it toward the table next to him. A neatly arranged square grid appeared on the wooden table, consisting of 15 horizontal lines and 15 vertical lines. The 2 books placed on the table spread out on their own, and the papers inside kept flipping, as if they were about to be separated from the bookcases by strong winds, but there was no wind at all in the lounge. The pages of the book quickly broke away from the hard shell cover, curled up together, and turned into black and white, round and flat-bottomed cool jade chess pieces, exactly what Lauren had in mind. The hard shell cover with the bare stick turned into a box for the chess pieces, and a high-end backgammon set was transformed. Ron stared at this scene in amazement and exclaimed, "Oh, if you ask me, your transfiguration is much better than Hermione's." Lauren spent some time explaining to Ron the rules of backgammon, and there were no forbidden hands. With such simple and interesting rules and round chess pieces, Ron was happy to try this new chess game. The two officially started playing chess, and Lauren wanted to give Ron some sweetness, so as not to dampen his enthusiasm and pester him to play wizard chess again. But soon, he was struck. So it can be done like this. After Ron experienced classic defeats such as double 3, 3, or 4, he became excited and enthusiastic. He seemed to be addicted to this simple backgammon. Lauren thought he could torture Ron for a long time, at least for the 1-week novice period. Things did not develop as he expected. Ron was really good at playing chess. He would not suffer the losses he suffered before, and he could quickly absorb Lauren's routine and use it on Lauren. "Good guy, all your talents are focused on this." Lauren couldn't do it well, and would even overturn if he continued. After struggling for a few rounds, he excused himself that it was time to have dinner and ended the battle in a hurry. But Ron still couldn't forget it. Even after repeated defeats, he was still full of enthusiasm for this novel gameplay. Playing wizard chess with other people, the outcome is basically no suspense, and he has to worry about his opponent's emotions so as not to kill him painfully. In contrast, this kind of backgammon, where he can lose, fascinates him even more. "Let's go to the dining table and continue. You go with the roast turkey." At the dinner table, Lauren was dealing with the chicken drumsticks in front of him while checking the situation on the tables of other colleges. He noticed that many people from the 4 colleges stayed to celebrate the festival. The few Slytherin people stayed. Lauren took a look and found that most of them were half-blood wizards, and most of the pure-blood little wizards had gone home. Lauren tore off a chunk of meat with his teeth and chewed it, enjoying the wonderful feeling of the juices and salty aroma billowing in his mouth. Ron looked over from the side and asked, "Would you like to play chess after dinner?" Lauren tilted his head, ignoring the possessed man, and continued to destroy the food. Ron walked around to the other side and said, "I have nothing to do anyway, let's play a few rounds." Lauren crunched the brittle bones in his mouth and ignored Ron. "It is impossible to play chess. You can only play 1 or 2 games occasionally to maintain your strength and give you experience. Wouldn't it be embarrassing if you were accidentally overturned?" Ron didn't get any feedback, so he turned around and walked towards the twins. "George, I just learned a new game." Evening, Gryffindor common room. Since most of the students had gone home, there were far fewer people in the common room than usual, and they were able to grab a good seat around the fire and enjoy the more comfortable soft cloth chairs with armrests. The twin brothers took out a lot of food from the kitchen, which could be poked with a fork and put into the mouth directly, such as bread, mushrooms, fruit pieces, and cut steaks. "If it gets cold, warm it up on the fireplace." Lauren stared at the churning fire in trance. This fire looked very suitable for barbecue. He must find a chance to try it in the future. At this moment, they were sitting there, enjoying the food and chatting. Fred told some interesting stories about the professors. George was killed by Ron in backgammon. He lost more than he won. When George was already very content and could only play wizard chess, they were ridiculed even more by Ron. The twins severely reprimanded their parents for their partiality. They would rather go to their brother's side on Christmas, leaving them homeless. They talked about Dumbledore's lady's hat, Professor McGonagall's transformation into a tabby cat, and the twins said they would do something different in the future and that they would make their names known to the entire wizarding world. Speaking of Professor Quirrell, the twins said they had had the opportunity to see the true face of the back of his head. They exchanged experiences on night tours, saying which floors Filch always patrolled, and which books in the restricted area were most exciting. "If Professor McGonagall were here, she would turn us all into fat pigs," George said. "Maybe turkeys. Then there will be a few more roasted turkeys at the Christmas party." Fred rarely disagreed with George. Everyone laughed together, and the laughter roared with the fire. The party didn't end until late at night. Ron was rejected by everyone. They didn't want to play chess with Ron anymore. Lauren got up early the next day. He had important things to do today. Lauren opened his eyes and sat up and saw Ron fully dressed, sitting cross-legged on his bed, playing chess with him. There was no sound as the chess pieces fell on the cotton sheets. The 15-lane chessboard was almost full and it looked like it had been played for a long time. The patterns on the sheets were turned into checkerboard lines. I don't know what was used to change the chess pieces. They don't look uniform in size at all, and their shapes are all kinds of weird. The colors can only be divided into dark and light colors. Lauren stared at the chess pieces carefully for a while. Ron had an idea. The chess pieces turned into multi-flavor beans could be eaten and played at the same time. Maybe you can consider teaching him to play Go. When you pick up a piece, you will capture it. Whoever eats it first wins. When Ron saw Lauren get up, he became happy and invited Lauren with the chess pieces. Want to play a game? No, no. Lauren shook his head quickly, the child was already possessed. Lauren changed out of her pajamas and dug out another item from the bottom of the box, the blanket that Nico had sold him along with the book. It is windproof and warm, so you won't get cold even if you spend the night in the snowy mountains. It is very suitable for what you are going to do today. Ignoring Ron's entanglement along the way, the two went to the restaurant to have breakfast. The decoration here is more gorgeous than yesterday. Some parts of the decorations have not been hung up yet, and it looks like it is not yet completed. While eating, Lauren looked at the guest of honor seat. There were only Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, and Professor Flitwick on it. It seemed that the professor's vacation life was irregular. Snape was not at the guest table. He was probably sleeping in, Lauren thought. Dumbledore noticed Lauren's gaze and winked mischievously at him. It was too childish. Lauren pretended not to notice, turned his head and looked around, returning to the plate in front of him. Ron was still whispering in his ear, "Let's play chess, let's play chess." Lauren put his hand on the wand and squeezed it again and again. He made up his mind that if Ron wakes up tomorrow morning and the first thing he says is to play chess, he will give him a stun spell to let him play in his dreams. I picked some carrots, bread, and chicken legs on the table. Putting them into the food box made from the dinner plate, holding the food box in one hand and wrapping the white fur blanket around his body, Lauren set off towards the Black Lake. It has been almost 2 months since winter began, and the fish under the Black Lake have been hungry for a long time. It is a good time to catch big fish. There are blankets to keep you warm, and you have the ability to shapeshift into any kind of fishing rod you want. The right time, right place, and right people are all in my hands, and I will definitely gain a lot today. Chapter 73. The Black Lake was so frozen that it looked like a mirror. It is said that there is a friendly giant squid living below, and when the little wizard falls into the water, he will use his long tentacles to lift people to the shore. There is also a whole tribe of mermaids in the Black Lake. Mermaids are intelligent humanoid magical creatures with a long history and rule the aquatic animals under the lake. Lauren crossed the snow-covered lawn and came to the edge of the Black Lake, looking at the lake with joy. I threw away the snow layer on the lake with my feet and kicked them hard, but there was no movement at all. Okay, the ice is about 1 meter thick, and it's covered with snow, so we'll definitely be able to catch fish. The ice layer is thick and the ice is still covered with snow, so the fish below may be starved of oxygen. If you make an opening in the ice at this time, the fish will gather in this direction, and there must be an opening. Lauren felt that he should go further in, as it was not easy to see ice on the shore. He used the deformation technique to rub some non-slip teeth on the soles of his shoes, and Lauren walked in with 1 foot deep and 1 shallow. The thickness of the ice layer was absolutely solid, so there was no need to worry about the ice cracking and him falling down to make a nest. Lauren began to choose a suitable fishing spot on the ice. He had a good idea in mind. He usually chose a sunny place on the north shore. He used the color of the ice to infer the underwater situation. The depth of the water was blue, and the places with many aquatic plants were also greenish-brown. There are generally more fish in this kind of place. After searching for more than half an hour, I finally chose a place. Thunderbolt piercing. For some reason, Lauren always has the urge to cast a spell on the lake. Boom! A disc-sized hole exploded in the lake surface, and the lake water gushes out from below, dispersing the blackness near the entrance of the hole. He looked at the hole and nodded with satisfaction. When he dug a hole in the ice, oxygen would melt under the water. When the fish noticed it, they would gather here. He would definitely have gained a lot today. Take out some carrots, bread, and chicken legs from the food box, tear them into pieces, knead them, and sprinkle them into the ice hole. Attracting oxygen, creating a nest with food, and using both meat and vegetables, Lauren simply couldn't imagine how amazing today's fish catch would be. Use the flying spell to summon the stones on the lakeside, and create a deck chair, windshield, fishing rod, fish bucket. With all the equipment, put the chicken leg on the fishhook and start the first shot easily. Lauren sighed. Transfiguration is really good news for the fisherman. Lying on the deck chair, covered with a warm fur blanket, Lauren stared at the float on the ice cave, waiting for the day to get off to a good start. Near noon, the sun shines from the clouds and shines on people's skin, giving them a slight warmth that is very comfortable. Lauren squinted his eyes and felt it carefully. The sun was warm and there was no wind. It was a perfect fishing weather. The warm light shone on his body, and Lauren unconsciously became lazy. In such weather, it was not bad to sleep. The float in Lauren's eyes gradually became blurred. Lauren! Lauren! Ron's voice came from behind. Lauren suddenly woke up, ignored Ron behind him, and quickly picked up his fishing rod to check the situation. The bait on the hook had disappeared. Heartache, in short, very heartache, accidentally fell asleep and missed the first shot. Behind him, Ron led a Hufflepuff boy, staggering across the ice and walking to Lauren's side. Lauren, what are you doing here? Ron stared at the fishing rod in front of Lauren's chair curiously. Fishing. As Lauren spoke, he reattached the lower hook of the fish. This time it will definitely work. What do you want from me? Fishing. The Hufflepuff boy next to him looked at the fishing rod curiously. He quickly understood the working principle of the pole and asked, why not use a pulling spell? The pole spell can emit a stretchable magic light rope at the tip of the spell to pull distant objects to the location specified by the caster. You are still young and don't understand that everything does not rely on magic. Lauren said in a leisurely tone. It is a good thing if there are fish to eat the bait. There will be no Air Force today. What do you want from me? Ron took over. This is Rolf's commander from Hufflepuff. He's asking you about frozen pears. This is normal. Several Hufflepuff students have asked how to do this in the past few days. Lauren looked at the little boy with naturally curly dark blonde hair next to him and said, Rolf, nice to meet you. The few people started chatting quickly. Rolf and Ron were also interested in fishing. Lauren conjured up 2 deck chairs to entertain them. In this way, the 3 of them were lying on the ice, chatting, and waiting for Lauren's fish to bite. Rolf's commander was very familiar with some magical animals. He talked about the Black Lake where in addition to ordinary fish, there were also dark magical creatures like Grindylow. Speaking of this, Rolf suddenly stopped, as if he remembered something, and looked at Lauren with a strange expression, as if he had something to say but couldn't say. I would like to ask how long you have been fishing here. Rolf asked tentatively. It's been all morning. I just fell asleep and I didn't pull the fish up when it took the bait. It's okay, there will be fish soon. Lauren was very confident. In such an environment and with such equipment, the Air Force would be impossible. Your bait may have been eaten by Grindylow. Rolf finally told Lauren the sad news. Grindylows are mindless, ferocious dark magical creatures that murlocs tame as pets. This creature has a green body, green teeth, horns on its head, and most importantly, Grindylow has very long fingers. The bait was probably removed and eaten by Grindylow with his hands, and Lauren never caught the fish. No way. Lauren's face paled when he heard this, and he quickly pulled up the fish hook to check. Sure enough, the bait on the hook was gone. Lauren closed her eyes in despair, unable to bear to look any more. Unexpectedly, I had the right time, place, and people in my hands. As a result, the fish in the Black Lake were lazy and took the bait with their hands. How could I catch it? Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Ron wanted to endure it for a while at first, but the more he endured, the more he wanted to laugh. Later, he laughed wildly, you might as well play chess with me in the castle. What do you know? This is the fish's problem, not my problem. The local fish are so unruly. I make a nest and lay bait, but they take the bait. Isn't this natural? Fishing is a kind of leisure, and it doesn't matter whether you get something or not. Lauren's eyes were confused and he was talking nonsense. What followed was the Air Force is impossible to be the Air Force, it's already here. Lauren's eyes began to wander around the Black Lake, and he must take something with him. I can help you prepare fish food that Grindylow hates but that ordinary fish will eat. Rolf's words stabilized Lauren's Taoist heart. Lauren stared at Rolf. Even in the sunlight, he could still see the small curly hair on the Hufflepuff's head shining. The atmosphere was harmonious again, Lauren stopped fishing, and planned to put away the blanket and dinner plate and go home. Put the pebbles here to mark a good fishing position, and wait until the fish food is adjusted tomorrow before fighting again. On the way back to the castle, they learned during the conversation that Rolf was the grandson of Newt's commander, and that Newt was the author of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them on the first grade book list. This commander family has a long history, and Rolf is very interested in this aspect, so he understands the characteristics of Grindylow and can help Lauren prepare fish food. P.S. Rolf's commander was born in 1980. He and Harry were in the same grade. This is not my second creation. Perhaps because Rowling wrote the Fantastic Beasts stories later, this person was not mentioned in the original Harry Potter novels. In addition, the pulling spell sounds very fake, but it is not my second creation. This spell really exists in official materials. Finally, why is this paragraph not included in the writer's talk? Because I want to improve the word count. He. Chapter 74. Lauren and Rolf hung out together in the afternoon, exchanging fish food and how to make frozen pears. Lauren occasionally asked him about some magical creatures he had heard of, such as thunderbirds, birds, and snakes, and what came to mind. Rolf was originally a little dissatisfied that his grandfather Newt took his family back to Paris to visit his hometown, but he was left in Hogwarts like this. Now he feels that such a vacation is not bad. Sunday, 2 days until Christmas. When he got up, Ron wanted to stay in bed for a while, crawling around in the quilt, unable to speak clearly, and he didn't pester Lauren to play chess. Lauren felt a little sorry for him. He missed an opportunity to sleep back in the cage. After breakfast, Lauren hurriedly took Rolf back to the Black Lake. It was another day with no wind and bright sunshine. Lauren nodded. God is destined to let you fish be caught by me, accept your fate. Boom. Make a hole, make a nest, set the hook, and lie down. Lauren did it in one go, so fast that Rolf couldn't react. I mixed some herbs into the ordinary fish food. Grindylow won't like the taste. Rolf followed Lauren's example and lay down on the chair. Don't worry, you will get half of today's fish. Hearing Lauren's confident voice, Rolf also became excited. Lauren. Rolf. Ron's energetic voice came from behind, holding a few bags of BB's multi-flavor beans in his hands, sliding towards them. It was not easy to escape from the bed. Did you get up so early to go fishing? Ron gasped and said to Lauren, if you want to eat fish, you can ask the kitchen elf to cook it. I remember there is a dish called Starry Sky, which has a lot of fish. Lauren stared at the float, ignoring the malice in Ron's words. You are still young, you don't understand. You are free to fish, let's play chess. Ron raised the BB multi-flavor beans in his hand and shook the package, making the jelly beans inside make a clattering sound. Lauren finally looked up. He looked around and found that there was no suitable place to sleep nearby, so he gave up the idea of giving Ron a coma spell. Ron didn't know that he had missed another chance to go back to sleep. You go with Rolf. Lauren waved his wand and conjured another recliner, and a stone table between Ron and Rolf with grid lines drawn on it. Rolf drooped his little curly hair and stared at the grid lines curiously. He wondered what kind of chess BB multi-flavored beans could play. Is this a new game for the little wizard? A strange scene occurred on the Black Lake. A fishing guy was guarding his fishing rod, and a chess guy was teaching bad children. Rolf helped Ron turn BB's multi-flavor beans into chess pieces. The chess pieces made by the two of them were more regular than Ron alone. He quickly understood the rules of backgammon and was happy to try it, but the process of playing chess with Ron was not very interesting. Rolf is just a novice, but Ron can always quickly complete the layout and win the game. Both the abuser and the abuser have little gaming experience. After a few games, Ron was too embarrassed to continue bullying, and Rolf was relieved. The chess game couldn't be played anymore, so Ron and Rolf were knocking on the jelly bean chess pieces, lying on the chairs, and waiting for Lauren to catch the fish. Lauren would lift his fishing rod from time to time to check if the bait was still there. The bait is always there and no fish takes the bait. The sound of the fishhook breaking through the water sounded again. Ron understood it clearly. He just lifted the lower hook to look at it and kept repeating, Lauren, please make a hole for me and get a fishing rod. Lauren pointed his nose at Ron, his eyes full of disdain. Hey, young man, it's your first time to start ice fishing. Do you think you can master it? Thunderbolt piercing. Thunderbolt piercing. Not wanting Rolf to stare blankly, Lauren opened 2 holes in succession and gave them to Ron and Rolf, each with a fishing rod. 3 fishermen appeared on the ice. The old fisherman taught 2 new fishermen how to hang bait, how to look at the float, and how to set the hook. After watching the 2 of them sink their fish hooks into the water, Lauren happily explained to them why they chose this place to make holes, what the wind and leeward were, the sun, the color of the ice. Give them some mental preparation. Fishing is not a simple matter, and the Air Force will feel better later. Rolf nodded his head as if understanding. It turns out that fish have so many things to pay attention to. Many of the contents can be applied to magical creatures. When I go back and write a letter to my grandpa at night, some of the methods are very enlightening for studying magical creatures. Ron saw his float move and the fishing line swaying slightly. He felt a strange pull from the fishing rod in his hand. Did I get a fish on the bait? Ron lowered his voice for fear of scaring the fish away. He felt that this feeling was very subtle, and his heart beat faster and he was a little excited. Ron seemed to understand the joy of fishing that Lauren said. Pull it up slowly, and pull it properly with the fish. Lauren calmly instructed Ron on the key points of closing the rod, and his teeth were almost broken. What's the point of this? It's just protection for newbies. It's available in many fields. When Ron gets into the trap, he'll know what the Air Force is. Lauren's hand clenched the fishing rod so tightly that his fingers turned white. Ron suppressed his excitement, carefully pulled the fishing rod, pulled the fish out of the hole, and threw it on the ice next to it. The fish, which is about the size of an adult's palm, is flapping on the ice with a hook in its mouth. Fortunately, it's a common bream in British freshwater lakes. Lauren stared at the fish, his voice was calm and gentle, and he clenched the fishing rod tighter in his hand. Haha! I caught a fish! Ron held the fish in his hands and cheered loudly, regardless of the cold water. As a wizard, catching fish is a very simple thing. He didn't know why he was so excited, but he was very happy. The second fish caught was Rolf, a carp the size of a boot. Rolf squatted down and poked the jumping carp with his hand, a subtle sense of accomplishment rising in his heart. The carp is also very big. Lauren smiled a little reluctantly. Rolf's family has some animals that are related to it, and their blood talents are just like Harry's Quidditch. It must be that the location of the fishing hole is not good. Both of them can catch fish, which proves that they must have no problem in choosing the spot, but they are not very lucky. Lauren walked to the side and reopened a fishing hole. Ron and Rolf experienced a little bit of the joy of fishing, not in the fish they caught, but in the time when the fish took the bait. They seemed to be one with the fishing rod, fighting wits and courage with the fish, and finally reaping the joy of victory. The 2 quickly set the hook again. There are 4 fishing holes on the ice and 3 fishermen. Everyone is staring at their own floats silently. Time passed slowly. Rolf caught 3 fish one after another, and he smiled even though he was a little shy. Lauren was able to convince himself that this man was gifted by blood and had affinity with animals. A few minutes later, Ron caught a big fish that was longer than his arm. His hands were red from the cold, and he was so happy that he was holding the big carp from ear to ear. Human beings' joys and sorrows are not the same. Lauren only thinks that Ron is very noisy. The local fish was so rude that he angrily changed his position to dig another hole. The scene on the ice changed. 2 new anglers were staring at their floats, and an Air Force guy was digging holes everywhere. Explosions sounded from time to time, but Lauren never caught a fish. Just when Lauren was about to open the 6th fishing hole, there was a vibration from the ice, followed by a low muffled scream. Woo! Rolf reacted and explained to Lauren, this is a giant squid underwater. We may have disturbed underwater creatures. Lauren touched his nose and felt a little embarrassed. The Black Lake in the magical world was not the small lake on the mountain before him, so he couldn't just fry fish. Maybe the mermaid would complain to Dumbledore and he would be arrested and imprisoned. The 3 of them quickly packed up and left, with Ron holding his big carp using a levitating spell. Let's go back and play chess. Follow your big carp. Accompanied by the sound of crunching shoes on the ice, the 3 figures gradually moved away from the Black Lake. Under the ice, scattered fragments of light sprinkled into the darkness of the deep water, gradually being swallowed up by darkness. An old mermaid looked at the direction where Lauren and the others were leaving. He was very old. Anyone could notice this at first glance. Both the dark green hair and the dark green beard have become withered and shriveled, not looking like they were soaked in water. The iron grey on the skin has been mixed with the silver of the tail, turning into a color between grey, white, and silver. The old man fish's yellow eyes, like autumn leaves, shone slightly in the water, and ancient legends emerged in his pupils, reflecting the scenery in front of him. The witch with black hair and black eyes had many names. Some people called her Morgan Le Fay, others called her Morgana, and perhaps other names. The old man couldn't remember her clearly. According to legend, she has a more famous title, Fairy Morgan. Sometimes she is a good person, sometimes she is recorded as a villain, the truth is unknown. Some people say that Fairy Morgan and Merlin were once good friends and studied magic together. But he is more widely known as Merlin's enemy. Their grudges have not been spread to the present. The truth has been lost in the long history. Many wizards have not even heard of this name. No one knows the fate of Fairy Morgan. Friends from the Centaur tribe sent someone to tell him a few days ago that the stars have changed, changes that have never happened in thousands of years, and the wave will sweep across the world, whether it is the Muggle world or the magical world. Hearing the name of the little wizard on the ice, he seemed to see a wave. Chapter 75. Ron found a small bucket and put his big carp in it, intending to keep it delicious until Harry came back to show him the fish he had caught. Not long after returning to the castle, the sunshine converged into the clouds, and the sky became gloomy. At night, the wind began to blow with the snow. The wind blew all night. It was already late when Lauren woke up, and his body temperature was wrapped around him in the quilt, making him not want to get out of bed at all. Turning around, Ron stood by the window, looking at Lauren's pears buried in the snow. Hearing Lauren's movements, Ron turned his head and looked at Lauren. "Your pears are a little darker, can you eat them?" "Let me take a look." Lauren walked to the window in her pajamas to check. The yellow skin of the pear has become a little dull, with some grey, and has not yet frozen to black. It will take a few days until the color turns completely black. Lauren picked out some pears that needed to be thawed, put them in a basin and defrosted them indoors. As a control group, these needed to be repeatedly frozen and then thawed. The sky outside the window is still gloomy. This is the normal weather in this season. The 2 consecutive sunny days in the past are indeed a good time for fishing. Lauren felt that he was very suitable for Renhe, but the location was not very good. The local fish in Black Lake were not polite, and Lauren did not dare to tell them the rules. "There is no way to catch fish, so I dress neatly, wash briefly, and then go to the cafeteria to have breakfast. There are many more dishes such as steaks and roast turkeys on the table. The house elves are preparing for the Christmas banquet and testing dishes. Would you like to play chess later?" Ron came over with a piece of bread in his mouth. Lauren rolled his eyes and slurped the pumpkin porridge. "If you ask again, I will turn you into a wizard chess piece and put you on the chessboard for the other chess pieces to beat you up. If you don't go down, you won't go down. Why are you so fierce?" Ron muttered to himself and went to the next table to look for Rolf. In fact, Lauren doesn't know how to transform the human body, he just scares this kid. After returning to the lounge, refreeze the thawed pears. Lauren took out his quill and prepared to finish all his homework today. Ron was playing chess with himself on the sidelines, throwing 2 chess pieces into his mouth from time to time. This was a funny little snack that could be eaten and played with. Lauren wondered if the boy had spent all the money left over from buying the wand on BB's all-flavor beans. Professor McGonagall left the most homework, most of which were basic knowledge questions. Opening the textbook, Lauren copied the answers to the parchment smoothly. Snape's homework was the most difficult, but Lauren's potion knowledge far exceeded that of a first-year wizard, and he could write the answer without even opening the book. Before the 2 assignments were finished, Ron began to sigh again, trying to attract Lauren's attention. The sound of quills scratching across parchment was interspersed with Ron's sighs. There are a total of 15 corollaries to the fundamental theorem of transfiguration, which are: well, the venom of the crocodile can be used to erase bad memories. Well, bicorns are obese and love to eat their kind and loyal husbands. Well. Lauren stopped writing and looked at Ron silently. He finally understood that as long as he was in front of Ron, he would inevitably be harassed. Feeling Lauren's gaze, Ron turned his head away as if nothing had happened, as if it was not him who sighed just now. "Let me teach you another board game." Lauren stood up and walked to sit next to Ron, intending to find something for him to do. Okay. Ron nodded fiercely. The wand tapped the tabletop, and the 15 horizontal and vertical backgammon grid lines changed to 19. Then the chess pieces in Ron's candy box became more black and white, and the material became harder. Go is a traditional chess game from the East. After more than half an hour, Lauren left the lounge happily with a homework look on his face. In the lounge, Ron was fascinated by the chess pieces on the chessboard. If he could install a cooling device in his brain, the fan would be spinning by now. This was different from the chess he had played before. Why could a chess piece be played so far away from the center of the struggle? In the end, the far-away chess piece blocked the whole area. Ron was excited and confused. Predictably, Lauren filled up Ron's memory and wouldn't bother him for a long time until Ron figured out go. This is not a coma spell, this is another kind of coma spell. Their effects are similar. In order to be clean, Lauren decided to go to the room of requirement to be alone. All the way upstairs, Lauren has now mastered the rules of the stairs. He can go up and down freely, and he can also use the stairs to save energy. He said hello to the silly Barnabas who was dancing with the troll, and was about to imagine a library to do his homework. Maybe he could try to imagine a library with all the answers to his homework. Before Lauren could try, a door suddenly appeared on the wall where the room of requirement was. A thin woman, wearing a pair of large round glasses, with countless chains and beads hanging around her neck, opened the door and came out with a bottle of sherry in her hand. She smelled strongly of alcohol. "Hello, Professor Trelawney." Lauren recognized the Professor of Divination, an elective course they wouldn't take until their third year. But this professor's reputation is very popular among students, because the assignments she assigns are the easiest to fool, and all you have to do is make up that you will be in bad luck. Professor Trelawney drank a lot of wine and looked drunk. Her eyes were difficult to focus. The professor looked at Lauren, looking him up and down. "Gryffindor students, you probably haven't attended my class yet," hiccup. Professor Trelawney suddenly let out a wine burp and her head hung down. Lauren calmly moved a few steps to the side to make way for the professor. "Black hair, Jack of Spades." Trelawney murmured unconsciously, and her body suddenly trembled violently. Trelawney suddenly raised her head, and Lauren could clearly see the color of her eyes faded, and her entire eye sockets were filled with white. "Black color." Her voice became hoarse and harsh. "The Dark Lord is far away from his forest, his plot, the White has anticipated, the Black Forest is the beginning of the wave, the blue and black people must go to, the transition between the old and the new, the desperate soul is crying shouting, the wave is about to start." Lauren's pupils contracted. Trelawney was in an abnormal state, she was making a prophecy. In the Harry Potter series, the divination professor seems like a liar, but every prophecy she makes comes true. From the beginning, Harry, Voldemort's destined opponent, to the last 13th seat, Dumbledore's death in the tower, her prophecies run through the entire story. Lauren repeated Trelawney's words and took out a pen and paper to write them down. The prophet watched him make the prediction. Lauren suspected that this prediction had a lot to do with him, and he had to pay attention to it. Professor Trelawney's eyes returned to normal, but she was still drunk and had no memory of the prophecy she had just made. "Gryffindor, remember to choose my class in 3rd grade. You seem to have some talent." After that, he wandered away. Lauren watched her go away, his eyes far-reaching until he could no longer see her. Looking down at the contents of the paper, Lauren tried to analyze the prophecy just now. The Dark Lord is Voldemort, and Voldemort's plot was anticipated by White, who should refer to Dumbledore. What the Black Forest is and what the wave is are yet to be determined. The man in blue and black, is that him? Blue eyes, black hair, Lauren guessed, but wasn't sure. When the old and the new change, what is the new and what is the old? Desperate soul, this familiar word made Lauren's eyes light up, and he had a strong hunch that there was a clue to Nico's riddle. The meaning of the prophecy should be that at the time when the old and the new change, the wave starts from the Black Forest, and there is a desperate soul in this Black Forest. Lauren plans to communicate with Dumbledore. Maybe this white color has more clues. It was almost noon, and Lauren planned to go directly to the Great Hall for lunch, where Dumbledore would also be there. Principal's office. Fox was combing his feathers next to the table. He was languid and didn't look very energetic. Phoenix didn't like this weather. Dumbledore looked at the parchment in front of him seriously, and he had some guesses about the content of the prophecy. Looking up at Lauren, Dumbledore showed a faint smile. He could detect Lauren's rush when recording this text, but when he was in the auditorium just now, Lauren slowly found him after finishing his meal and confided in him. "This is a shocking prediction." Lauren was sitting opposite Dumbledore, counting the number of lemon sherbets in a box, excluding the one in his mouth. "Even if this is not my first contact, I am still amazed by the mystery of the prophecy." Dumbledore put down the parchment and sighed. So do you know what the waves in the Black Forest refer to? Lauren felt that this should be the little storm brought by his butterfly. There were neither of these two things in the plot he knew. Dumbledore took out a lemon snow candy and put it into his mouth. While tasting it, he said, I don't know what the wave refers to specifically, but the Black Forest may not be so difficult to guess. Both the centaur and the mermaid had talked to him about the wave. Dumbledore was not sure what it was that was about to undergo a major change that had not happened in 1,000 years. Regarding this kind of thing beyond control, since Professor Trelawney gave a prophecy, he must go and take a look. No riddles. No riddles. No riddles. Lauren repeated it 3 times, slapping his palms on the table quickly and slightly. Explain the meaning of the prophecy directly. I hate you the most when you are elderly and talk in roundabout ways. This anxious look made Dumbledore laugh. He was obviously very leisurely while eating. Oh, Lauren, I think as a wizard, you should have plenty of patience. Urgent, urgent. Lauren kept urging. Well, Dumbledore said, eating another lemon sherbet, if your Christmas gift surprises me, I'll tell you. You are already 100 years old. Lauren was reminding Dumbledore, could you please stop being so childish? Dumbledore looked at Lauren with a smile, of course, when I am with you young people, I always feel a little younger. Lauren understood that this man would not tell him until after Christmas, so he jumped off the chair and patted his butt to leave. Goodbye Lauren, I look forward to your gift. Dumbledore smiled at Lauren's back. Lauren turned his back and waved to him, I will give you a box of cockroaches and put a real cockroach in it. Dumbledore's face froze. Imagine that scene, it would be a scary prank. When going down the stairs to the 4th floor, Lauren met Ron. Why are you here? Lauren was surprised. He thought Ron should be in the lounge at this moment and wanted to get into the chessboard. Ron seemed to have just done something great, with a proud smile on his face as he proudly showed off to Lauren, I just protected the Sorcerer's Stone. Harry was not in school, and it didn't matter whether the Sorcerer's Stone was in that room or not. Ron's guardianship might have been a matter of saying hello to Lua or something like that. Oh. Lauren didn't ask anything, and went down the stairs. He had just suffered a loss from Dumbledore, and he wanted to transfer Ron's smile to his face. Why don't you ask me what I did? Ron quickly caught up with Lauren and asked. I don't want to know. Lauren felt happy. The law of conservation of happiness is indeed the truth. Netizens are not deceiving me. That's the Philosopher's Stone, you really don't want to ask. I don't want to ask. No, you have to ask me how I protected the magic stone. As the two pulled together, Lauren's smile became more and more cheerful, and the smile on Ron's face disappeared. In the afternoon, Ron learned another sad news, which made his grief even greater. After returning from fishing yesterday, Ron planned to keep the fish in a wooden barrel, but finally placed the barrel in the courtyard outside the castle. During a night of wind and snow, the carp was frozen to death in the ice, with a strange light shining in its eyes. Ron's heart sank, and his sadness grew even greater. After learning the news, Lauren and Rolf didn't know how to describe their current mood. They could only stand next to Ron and try not to laugh out loud. Ron stopped pestering Lauren about playing chess for the rest of the time, and was still talking about it until he went to bed. Why did I forget Rhett outside? Rhett was the name Ron gave the carp. He thought the name fit well with the festive atmosphere of Christmas. It's all my fault that Rhett is so cute. The day before Christmas. After Ron got up, he still missed his fish, couldn't cheer up, and was listless even when eating. Only then did Lauren realize that the problem was serious. Ron couldn't even eat. Xiahong's death was a real blow to him. In order to comfort Ron, who was in deep pain, Lauren dragged him to play Go all day long. His CPU was so hot that Ron had no space left in his mind to remember Rhett. The words he muttered changed from red to black and white. Steal. When I woke up early the next morning, my bed was piled with packages. Merry Christmas. Ron was already awake, and there were packages piled beside his bed, and he was about to open them.